And we're live, and we're a lot closer than normal. This
I moved this up.
This actually seems like a little too close. Let's adjust it. It's not that I have a problem with the way I look. I'm just saying that it seems like, is that, yeah, okay. That's, yeah, okay. I'll live with that.
You were ready for that.
I mean, we're really we're really dealing with, format changing on the podcast, but this is definitely one that's a new one, right? I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
And this is Generational Change on Thursday night, but probably not for long.
Yeah, we're going to switch away from Thursdays. We're noticing.
It's not easy to compete with Nina Turner and Cenk Uygur, and then on the other side, Katie Halper and Michael Moore. So we're learning that a lot of shows, we were just saying.
We're going to fill in the empty spots for the other shows that there are no people. That's what we're going to try
we're not big enough. So we have to do what we have to do.
So we're contemplating switching to a Sunday, Wednesday format. That's what we're thinking. And Sunday it would be, I don't mind doing the day either. Like that, it was like a leisurely Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and we've been encouraged to do that as well, which is also something that's interesting. And I think that that's important.
But
if there's certain days and times that makes more sense. And like I said, when I was getting ready for the show and I noticed that Nina was going on with Cenk at 8:00. It's like, all right, talk about.
And I almost feel bad. Like I don't even want to take a, I don't want to distract
anybody away from Nina.
No, but we will be having Nina on as well.
We have some big news. We'll announce it now. We are going to be having our big news is we are going to be having a Veterans Day panel on Veterans Day. And one of our special guests is going to be none other than a hero, I think, of both of ours, Oliver Stone.
Oliver Stone.
So we will probably have other guests as well, but they're all going to be veterans.
Yes.
And that's the thing about
Veterans Day.
Mr. Stone. He is a veteran. He's a Vietnam vet. So is Danny Sershin, who made this happen. Have to give it to Danny.
He's so cute.
He is
I know
great
that.
guy,
I'm sorry, but he is. He's just adorable.
He really brokered the relationship with Oliver and made this happen. And so, this is big.
And we're trying to figure out who else to sort of add to that. We don't
want to make it a big panel. Maybe like 5.
Who would be a great person to get on that? Would be oh my god, I'm drawing a blank. Is his name Abby Martin's husband?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mike.
It's with a P.
Mike Preisner. Yeah, that's a great call. Okay. Yeah, I think Preisner would definitely be great for that.
Just saying.
We'll ask
him. Okay. See, now I'm thinking.
Y'all can be Come on, Bronx. That seems like you're almost implying that we are not that interesting.
Well,
wrong. Have you ever seen Dana Carvey do his impression of John McLaughlin? Wrong. I had Special K with banana. What did you have for breakfast, Jennifer?
Okay. I don't even know what that is.
You have never watched the
No.
McLaughlin Group?
No, I don't know what that is. What am I missing?
The McLaughlin Group was a very you really don't know what that is?
I mean, I used to watch the McNeil Lehrer
All right, so in
like
the
old school. So
and in the Reagan 80s and the Clinton 90s, very popular Sunday morning show. I believe it was on NBC. Bronx,
so you're basically talking about late 80s to mid 90s.
No, this was early 80s.
Oh, okay.
He was on from the very beginning. No, McLaughlin Group was on for a long time, but their popular days were in the 80s and 90s.
All right.
And so they would have a 4-person round panel. One of the super liberal person who would be like that bookie wormy, like upper class person, Eleanor Clift. Do you remember her?
Yes, I do know
so
who
Eleanor
that is.
Clift was the super liberal. The super conservative was Pat Buchanan.
But if that's the super liberal, I'm scared.
Okay, so Pat. Well, in those days, yes.
All right.
But Pat Buchanan was another one of the panelist members, and I would definitely say of all the Sunday shows, it was really good. But John McLaughlin was a Reagan Republican, but it was a very popular show. And it was like Crossfire before they had Crossfire.
I used to watch Crossfire.
So it was Crossfire before.
Okay, do you want to know the geekiest thing? When we were living in Indianapolis, when I was working at the State Chamber of Commerce, I would watch, this was like really sad. I would watch C-SPAN, but this was back, a long time ago, C-SPAN. And it would be a show in the morning. It was called Washington Roundtable. You probably
I do remember that, yes.
Okay, that was my staple. I had to watch Washington Roundtable every day. And then I would actually watch like House and Senate floor stuff. And Jason would come over and he'd be like, that's like watching paint dry. He could not fathom like what I'm watching. And I would just be sitting there watching like a chamber of people sort of walking around and little votes going on the thing. And he'd be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm a geek.
Ricardo, you forgot that I was just doing my impression of Dana Carvey doing an impression of John McLaughlin. Welcome to the show. Hope you're having a great day. I won't subject Michael Owens to this because he'll get really scared.
Okay, well, let's give a preface about our first guest, because I met Michael at a BNC summit November 2020.
I was
2019.
I was there
losing
too.
My mind. Yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
Okay, we met him. And Michael was a candidate for Congress in Georgia, I believe Atlanta area.
Yes.
Yeah. And like me, did not win on our BNC slate, and is now running for Secretary of State for the state of Georgia. And this is why this is really important. This is a very important thing. Everybody who remembers the whole Stacey Abrams fiasco, wherein you had, oh no, don't do it, wherein you had basically the Secretary of State at the time was running for governor and was in charge of counting his own votes.
There is definitely no conflict of interest there.
Like,
that's
you can't make this up.
Gets.
So anyway, we know how that went. And so this obviously is a very important position. And so it really pleases me that Michael is running for that.
Definitely one of the stronger relationships that we have formed from the whole brand new Congress experience. He is a wonderful gentleman and somebody that we wholeheartedly support for the Secretary of State in Georgia. Michael Owens, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey, how is everyone?
Everything's good, but unfortunately,
what
there's
is happening with
wrong.
you?
There's something.
I don't know.
Something.
Something's happening. I gotta let me swap cameras here because that doesn't look right.
No.
You look. Listen. You know, you're not Don Juan, but you're not ugly either. So come on.
You don't have green slime on your face.
Yeah, for real. Well, hey, listen. He may have had a late night mask on, and he was cleaning it off, and he didn't get it all off, and happens sometimes.
You.
That's me. Well, yeah, of course. Well,
that's you with your mask.
Properly.
Yeah. No, but this is a very cool thing to happen, because that is a seat that clearly matters in having anything change whatsoever.
And this is the thing that's very interesting about politics, because if I ultimately do decide to run, I'm not going to say what or when, but I will tell you that the position that I would be running for is very important, but it's not sexy. And there's so many positions that are out there that are immensely important. And if you want to have an impact, you could easily run for. And the establishment, quite frankly, doesn't really waste a lot of time.
I should be your campaign manager.
Yeah, really.
I'm more organized than you are.
Yes.
And I am much more like time, efficient than you are.
Well, we have a third member of our trope. So thankfully, if you ultimately do decide to run again, if I decide to run, we do have a very good friend. His name is Anthony. And
he's like chomping at the bit.
Yeah, he really, really wants her to run again, and he obviously would like me to run at some point.
But he would also be somebody good to run too.
Yes.
Like, and then I would be happy to work on his campaign.
Yeah, but again, that's the thing about knowing where you can be the most effective. That's a big part of the process. Is
I would be a really good campaign manager.
I'm sure you'd be great at it. But again, I would have run against Wasserman Schultz if I had a shot in hell, but I don't. So I'm not going to subject anybody to that type of time and effort and money when it is a fool's errand. And I can say that
where
about
self-awareness, and also understanding the district and understanding the market. Like, It can't just be, oh, I want that job. We've talked about this a lot.
Yeah,
it really has to be
like want the job.
They just want that job.
Yeah.
But it might not necessarily be the right fit for that district. It might not be. Unfortunately, demographics matter.
Yeah, and we also we assume that Michael right now is restarting his
I'm
browser.
Sure
he's trying to make it right. So I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. And
you're also not from here, which is, that's not something that people generally like.
No, they don't like carpetbaggers. That is what happened with the previous person who ran for this seat.
I mean, it's one more thing. It's just especially considered a negative,
especially in an area with a very older population,
and who votes. Like, there's a lot of people here that are not that population. They just don't vote as much as that population.
That of all the things that we constantly heard on the campaign trail when it came to those particular voting blocks that were Debbie supporters. Oh, I've known Debbie forever. That's
Debbie's seat.
That matters to them. So that's a big deal. All right, so let's try again with Michael Owens. Welcome back to Generational Change. And you look No, it's doing it again.
What is happening to you? It's looking like, do you see it? Do you see what it is?
Try again. Say something again.
Hello?
All right. It looks like something's in your mouth.
It's
it'd be
better than
quite-
before. It's better than before.
It's weird. What kind of camera? What are you
Maybe
using?
it's one of those filters that my daughter's putting on.
Oh, I could see that. That's what it is.
And now you have like this.
Now you have like this aura around you. Oh my God. This is like that. Remember that one where the attorney was in the meeting and his daughter had switched it so he was a cat and he couldn't undo the thing and he was in this meeting for his office?
That was a commercial, right?
No, that happened. That happened.
Oh.
He was appearing and it was a Zoom like arbitration or something or whatever it was in front of a judge or a deposition.
Listen, if you're going to have Mike, if you're going to have a halo around you, but your expressions and everything are fine.
Oh my God.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we could just do it. It's fine. It's just funny.
It's actually
now
really
that he
cool.
said that, now I'm remembering the attorney that said, and the cat's mouth would move when he talked. And you saw him say, I don't know how to turn it off, Your Honor, but I am not a cat. And it's the cat saying, I am not a cat. It was so freaking funny.
This is pretty incredible. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever done anything like this before. So
Well, you
give it a
have a
shot.
certain aura to you, so we're very grateful that you're here and spending your time this evening. But
Okay, so talk to us about Secretary of State. I mean, obviously we know the drama and what went on with Stacey Abrams' race and the ridiculous conflict of interest. For God's sake.
before he does that, somebody wants to give his endorsement to.
Oh, for God's sake.
You know, when I was doing my big event the other day, the really great event, you know, I endorsed Stacey Abrams for governor, but I totally forgot to endorse Michael Owens for Secretary of State. So I'm endorsing you now. Remember, Democrats and Republicans, you want to vote for this guy. He's a tremendous person, really great guy,
So
and
funny.
he served our country.
It's so funny with
Served
New
our
Jersey.
No, he served our country. He
So
did a
funny
really
with
great
Trump
job.
in
No, he did a
Jersey.
really great. No, he did a really great job, and he's going to do an even better job once he's in charge. And you know why he's going to do a better job? Because he believes in fair and free elections.
And I would like to say
Fair.
that Michael Owens, should you ever choose to run for governor, that you wouldn't also be presiding as the Secretary of State.
Don't worry, I'm going to make him Secretary of State first, and then I'll make him governor. It takes time. You got to win one first, then you win another one next.
Go.
You know, former President Trump was here in Georgia this past weekend, stirring up more trouble, spreading more misinformation and, you know, conspiracy theories, and still trying to overthrow the election, right, from last November. So, you know, in some ways, he's obviously very, very problematic. But in other ways, he's kind of the gift that continues to keep giving, right? Because, you know, after that debacle of last year, we did put two senators, right? We sent two senators from Georgia, two Democrats, to the Senate, and we also carried the state for Joe Biden, right? So Trump has nothing else proven to be a help for those of us who want to get more Republicans out of office. So from that aspect, yeah, it's not too bad.
If his tantrum is going to cost the Dixie GOP more elections, hey, I ain't going to complain. You know?
Yeah,
you know,
whatever.
I mean, but the fact of the matter is the fact that Trump continues to meddle in the elections and what's going on. There is he has a handpicked Republican, Jody Heiss, who is a congressman that Trump literally said, "Hey, go run in Secretary of State's office." He actually promoted him and supported him this past weekend. So, which really sets the stage, right? We have a Republican Secretary of State now who was the architect of the anti voter campaign. Basically, he launched an absentee voter fraud task force long before there was ever any talk about a voter fraud, right? So he really set the stage for it. I know he got some attention about not caving to Trump when Trump called and told him basically to, you know, throw out more votes. But I continue to tell people this is the same Republican Secretary of State who continually purges people from the polls, as well as the one, like I said, started the task force to begin with, and really started the whole voter fraud type movement, right? That now we see is carried across the country. I mean, Georgia, as you mentioned, Jen, back from when Stacey Abrams run, Georgia has been, you know, ground zero when it comes to, you know, this kind of revisionist theory around Jim Crow 2.0, right, of what we're calling it, and election suppression flat out. I mean, voter suppression, where people that are elected, they want to choose who their voters are that vote for them, and that's absolutely the wrong way to go about it. So my foray into this election, into this campaign, has been very simple. I'm someone who has over 20 years experience in cybersecurity. That's what I do for a living. For those of you out that don't know, I've worked for and with some of the largest companies in the world, actually designing, deploying, and safeguarding systems. That's what I do for a living. In 2016, I think, 2017, when Russia had invaded Crimea and was shutting down their electrical grid at will. I was one of the 16 cybersecurity experts that went over at behest of the Ukrainian government to talk to them, to talk about strategies, to shine a spotlight on what was going on, and ultimately be able to help them with cybersecurity techniques that would allow them to not only to stop the shutdowns, but also to protect data that they had. In 2018, after the world's largest cybersecurity breach, I was recruited by Equifax. Yes, that Equifax, everyone knows who it is. 150 million Americans were subject to a targeted cybersecurity breach, which we know now was done by the People's Army of China. So I've been in the thick of domestic and international cybersecurity incidents and breaches, and when the cards are down, when we need someone to step in and safeguard data, I'm thankful enough that I've been one of the people that's known to be able to come in and help out with that. This is no different. A lot of talk, and we talk a lot about Trump and the misinformation and the completely inaccurate information about voter fraud that goes along out there, and then the voter suppression, everything that goes along with it. But there's also the legitimate aspect of being able to secure election systems and being able to protect voter data, right? That is critical information and critical systems. And I think also in 2017, President Obama codified election systems as part of our critical infrastructure. The Congress has been, all of us have been talking a lot about critical infrastructure and infrastructure bills. Well, I'm here to tell people, right? Democracy, the heart of democracy, is the trust that we have in our election systems. And what I have to say about that is that if we're truly going to uphold elections as the cornerstone of our democracy, and if we're truly going to have election systems as part of our core infrastructure, then we have to treat it as such, right? We have to fund it. We have to make sure people are trained and educated, and we have to have someone at the helm who's actually deployed systems, who's safeguarded them, and who understands the current threats we're going to have in the future. And at the end of the day, that is why I'm running, because I know how important elections are. We have to restore faith that everyone has, not just Democrats or people on the left, right? We have to restore the faith that everyone has in their election systems and make people believe in them again, fight the disinformation, and ensure that we're focusing on the real threats that are out there, like China, like Russia, like Iran, those that really, want to sow discord in a way that, we're not talking about, people climbing over walls, or dead people voting. We're talking about serious threats to our elections, and which has already been founded, right? Our IC community has already clearly said that, during the 2018 election, we know that they were meddling in our elections. Foreign adversaries were. So, my focus is to get us to focus on things that truly matter, safeguarding our election systems. In Georgia, Jen, we had people waiting in lines up to 10 hours to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
10 hours.
And we know who that affects the most. We know who that
affects the most, right? So when we talk about voter suppression, people ask me a lot of times about what that means. And I say it comes in various forms and fashions and shapes, right? It's not a singular thing. Having someone wait, for 10 hours, that is obvious voter suppression. Having someone wait in line for 2 hours or 3 hours is voter suppression, because again, like you said, we know who that impacts the most. And across racial lines, across socioeconomic lines, when some people are, they're taking their lunch break, or they're having to try to make that hour before work, or they're trying to get in those polls before 7 o'clock so they can actually vote in the evenings, when they may need to pick up their child from daycare, and all these competing things that go along. Changing election polling locations at the last minute. When Miss Susan, who's voted at this election polling location for the last 25 years, all of a sudden it's been changed, it's been moved.
By the way, that happened in Cleveland, right in front of us.
Yes.
We watched that happen in Nina Turner's election, right in front of us.
That's exactly what happens, right? And it gets moved to a place that's, off the bus line, right? There's no public transit system to get to those locations.
There's not even a sign saying we moved.
Exactly. I've seen situations to where police cars are strategically placed right out in front of polling locations for no real reason. There's
intimidation, just to look threatening.
So again, right? We know the tactics that's happened, and our current governor, Brian Kemp, when he was Secretary of State, there was hundreds and hundreds of polling locations that were closed across the state. And guess what communities they were in, right? They were in majority Black communities. So we know that. We know this is a systemic problem that we have, and we absolutely have to do something about it. And whether it's the incumbent or whether it's Trump's chosen pick for this race, we absolutely cannot afford to lose this race in November. It is the utmost importance. Or I'm skipping forward to next November.
Yeah, no, and I was just kind of curious, like, other than elections, obviously Secretary of State is not just that, right? I mean, like, there's other things that fall within the purview of that. I don't know if you could talk about that a little bit, because the truth is, I really don't know. I really don't know. Like, the only time I ever hear of the Secretary of State has to do with elections.
And it's usually not for a good reason.
Yeah, right, you're exactly right. And make no mistake about it, this election will continue to be about voting rights. It will continue to be about securing our elections and making sure that we have someone that can make sure that these elections run smoothly and as democratic as possible, small d, right? But you're absolutely right. The Secretary of State's office is much more than that. Probably the secondary, or let's just say an additional role of the Secretary of State is responsible for the business registrations for every business that exists within the state. That is incredibly important as we continue to, now try to work through and recover from COVID, where businesses has just been slashed. It's been devastating, as we all know, primarily to small businesses. So the next Secretary of State is going to have to take an active role in transforming that office, making it be more forthcoming to people. And that's something we absolutely have to do. So that's one aspect. It's also responsible for all the business licenses that, for all the professional licenses that gets existed throughout the state. So, nurses, truck drivers, everything that has to have a professional license for the most part has to go through the Secretary of State's office as well. So those are some key areas, and areas that, again, I want to make sure that we work on. It's vitally important.
Yeah.
There are two significant elections in terms of national recognition that are coming in Georgia next year. Obviously, the governor's race, and of course, the re-election for Senator Warnock. If you can talk about the importance of getting out the vote, the importance of, we lost Mike.
We lost him now. He got whisked away in the fairy dust of his daughter's filter.
Yeah, we'll give him a couple of minutes to hop on, because none other than Ron Placone himself is in the waiting room. So listen,
the online green room.
Yeah, no, look, Michael is great, and we know that. And again,
he's very honorable.
Yes. But again,
he's a very honorable person. He is definitely somebody of integrity. Like, he'd actually be a really great person to be in that job.
No, 100%. And obviously voter turnout is going to be key. And having those two big races come up next year, I think, is only going to help him. Now, I don't know. I would assume there's going to be some type of a primary. But
he served, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he's also, and he's run for federal office before. So he has name recognition. And he's just an overall good guy.
He really is.
I mean, what more can you say? I mean, we met a lot of people in DC, but he was definitely somebody who stood out. And I think it would be great, to have somebody like him in a position where, integrity is very important. We saw what happened down here with Brenda Snipes, with, just the supervisor of elections. The thing that a lot of people have to recognize, and we talk about this all the time, the importance of the inside-outside strategy in politics. This entrenchment has been going on for decades and decades and decades. And a lot of people have only been involved for a few years. So to unwrap that level of corruption takes a long time. And to expose it takes a long time.
Yeah.
I even said today, I think what Kirsten Sinema is doing in a roundabout way is actually a good thing, because she's completely blowing the door wide open on the corruption and basically saying, yeah, we're just hiding behind identity politics. In reality,
we need Eva Pacova in Arizona.
Need Eva Pacova. That would be great.
That would be a
fact that the Arizona Democratic Party has already cast a vote.
They're like wanting to like. She's terrible, but to me, it's just she's going scorched earth. She's clearly not interested in running again. She's taking all the money she can get her greedy little hands on, and then she'll go work in the private sector for one of those people. That's all. She's clearly not interested in serving. She's not interested in what people think, even her own constituents and her own party. And I
think that's a great place to start with, Ron, because as I said to you a little bit earlier, even if that were the case, I still think that Sinema in reality is just being the fall person. She is willing to take the arrows because she knows she's going to benefit from it, because the truth is they don't really want to pass this reconciliation bill.
Of course they
don't want to help anybody.
So you're just saying she's just a fall guy. They just needed someone else plus Manchin. And since she has no intention of running again, she's like, all right, I'll take one for the team. Yeah, I could see that, except for the fact that she's just, in order to do that, even if that is what you're doing, that still makes you a soulless corporate whore.
Yeah, that's so
you're a soulless corporate whore, whether you just are or you're playing a part. Still soulless, still corporate, still a whore.
Well, I am always thrilled to bring in our next guest. We are always thrilled to bring in our next guest because it just so happens that the night that the idea of Jen running for the U.S. Congress was conceived was the night that we ran into each other. Yes, I know, but that was the way it worked out. Was the night that we happened to be at the same comedy show of Ron Placone and Graham Elwood.
So basically, we're saying that we are like
we owe
the
something
offspring,
to them.
like the campaign is the offspring of
who
Ron.
knows if it ever would have happened? So fate would have it. He is the host of Get Your News On with Ron. He is a frequent collaborator with Jimmy Dore and many others. And he's a damn funny guy. What more can you say? Ron Placone, welcome back to Generational Change.
What's up, guys? I had no idea I had a child, but I'm not surprised to find out it's in Florida. That's what happens there.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's kind of like a Charlie Kelly story from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I mean, that's just kind of the way it comes out. It's like, yeah, I got a kid somewhere. Holy.
Well, cool. I did not know that. That's I'm cool to hear that, and yeah, it hurts my heart that we're not going to be on the road coming up here. We did postpone our tour with the Delta variant, but it makes me all the more excited to get back out there once things finally get to a better place. So.
We could, as a sidebar, we had Judah Friedlander on the podcast, and he had mentioned that, he does a lot of these Zoom comedy shows.
He's been doing Zoom comedy shows.
Like, how do you find that works, Ron? Like, it's not the same as when you have the audience at your back, obviously, but do you find that even doing shows through Zoom is beneficial to at least, kind of keep the material fresh, if you will?
Oh, totally, man. Myself and another comedian named John F. O'Donnell, very funny guy. We actually had a debate on this just for fun, like a while back when the pandemic was still like we were in lockdown. Yeah, I mean, I've done Zoom shows as well. We were doing a Zoom show every Saturday for a little while when things were first locked down. And it was, yeah, is it as good as the real thing? Absolutely not. Is it better than nothing? Totally. And I've done some Zoom shows with Judah before, too. Judah's got a really cool thing going on. So yeah, I mean, they're one of those things. They definitely have their place. They're not the real thing. They're nowhere close. But is it better than nothing at all? Totally. Some comics didn't do them, but I totally did throughout the pandemic, and I still do them occasionally. I've still done them with Judah. I've still done them with I do them for my patrons. Like every so often, I'll do a patron Zoom show. I was doing it once a week, but then like with summer and stuff, it was a little hard to keep doing it once a week. People weren't really showing up as much. So now I do it, like almost once a week, like every other week. And then usually there's like a bonus one or whatever. So I still do them like for patrons, and that works because people are all over the world and stuff. So it's not like I can do a physical show all the time for patrons. So yeah, it has its place. Not the same thing, but it's cool to know that the option's out there. So
Yeah. So what are you doing? I know you have Get Your News On with Ron, but then I thought I saw something about a book. Is there a book? Did you have a book or something?
no. I mean, now
I
I
thought I saw
feel
no, but
like
I
I
thought I
gotta
saw something
write
like
something.
Well, Ron's going to be writing a book
No.
about the love for cats. I mean, I know that's going to come out one of these days.
I had a
you just let
cat.
us know when it happens.
I had a cat comic that has been on hiatus for a little bit that I'd like to bring back, called Lucy and Ron, which is about myself and my cat Lucy, who's asleep on the couch over there. But yeah, no, I don't. I think I tweeted a joke the other day. Like I was remembering something a teacher of mine said. I forget what I said, but this was in high school, and I said something, and the teacher heard it, and he kind of looked at me, and he goes, someday I'm going to write a book called Ron Placone, the Cynic, because I guess I said something cynical. So I thought it'd be funny, like, to someday write a book. I don't know about what, really, but then to call the book Ron Placone, the Cynic. It just, I mean, it'd be weird to have, like, your own name in the title, but, there's a funny story behind it. So who knows? So
There's
that might be.
always
You might have seen that tweet, and that's what you're referring to.
I don't know. I just
But-
could have sworn I saw something that you were coming out with something, whatever. I didn't. I
No,
don't know.
I'm
And
making a
not
movie.
on social media so much, so it's only what I see from other people talking about it on YouTube shows.
Oh, okay. I'm making a movie. That might have been what you saw.
Oh, okay. That
And I'm always curious because you play off others extremely well. Like you've got the one-line zingers that you just come in with that completely knock it out of the park. So what's sort of your origin story? Like how did you end up?
the origin
How
story.
did you end up, Mr. Western Pennsylvania in California? Being a comedian in LA and all, and obviously traveling all around. And it does seem that you have really good comedic timing is the way that I would put it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, I was a road comic for a long time, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're a comedian who just travels the road and does comedy clubs. And I was doing a lot of colleges for a while. And I toured full time from about 2012 until about 2016 or so when I moved out to LA. And it was one of those things. Eventually you kind of make that decision. Do I want to just kind of stay on the highways for the rest of my life, or do I want to go to New York or LA and, try to get a writing job or try to get whatever else, get into acting, whatever it may be. So I decided to go out to LA, and everything else just kind of blossomed from there. Ran into Jimmy at a comedy club. I had known him prior. And everything just kind of grew from there over the past, how long's it been now? 5 years that I've been in LA.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it, man. I mean, I just, I was based in Nashville for a while. I lived in my hometown of Pittsburgh for a while. And I started up in Seattle. So, I've been kind of nomadic over the years. But been in LA for 5 and probably going to be here for a long time, presumably, unless something crazy happens.
You like it out there? My husband's from the area, and so I've been out there quite a bit. But it's just there's too much traffic. There's just too much traffic. There's
Too many people.
There's too many
You
people.
guys,
but I
y'all
feel like
hold
that
your
about
own in
it.
Miami.
And I'm telling
Yeah.
him every day, like just today, like there are we had to go down to Miami today. I don't usually venture into the 305, and there's just too many people. There's just too many people, too many cars, just too many.
Yeah, I wish more people really understood, why people like Wasserman Schultz are able to stay in power. It's more complicated than people think. But part of it is because we are so overpopulated. It's hard to reach people. So many gated communities. At least in LA. I mean, obviously you have your gated communities in Bel Air and Beverly Hills and places like that. But it's much easier to reach people. It's very hard to reach people down here. You'd be surprised. So there's a lot of layers to South Florida that are
we're a hot mess.
Yeah, we are.
All right.
We are.
Yeah,
It was a
I
hot
can
mess.
see that. I can see that. I mean, I've always had a good time down there, but yeah, totally. I feel ya. And to answer your question, as a city, I like it a lot more than I thought I would. Like I moved to LA not knowing how much I was or wasn't going to like it. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to hate it because it's like one of the cities of the world. Why would you hate it? But I didn't know how much I would love it. But I really love living here. I think part of it is I live in San Pedro, which for anyone who knows the area, that's like kind of South Bay. So I live kind of right on the water, and it's a harbor town. It's a working class town. It's a union town. So it's kind of lefty, especially compared to most other parts in LA. and it's near Long Beach and stuff. So I feel like I get all the amenities of LA without any of the problems. Like in Pedro, it's really easy to find street parking. There's there's room to breathe. There's rooms to
Right.
stretch out. There's a wonderful beach. There's parks, and there's great places to eat and grab a beer. But when you need to kind of leave your neighborhood to go to Hollywood or wherever else, you can get there, and it's not that hard. So yeah, I mean, I like it. It fits me. It fits me pretty well.
Well, speaking of living in LA, and obviously it seems like everyone who's out there is involved in the film industry in some way, shape, or form, please share with us your latest project. No major Hollywood studio is producing this, right? This is
It's
your
an indie
baby.
film. This is an
There
indie
you go.
film. Yeah. I have. Well, it's been a crazy day for me. I don't know if you guys saw my Twitter account today, but it's been a little crazy time in the world of Ron. I woke up this morning, so I have a GoFundMe for my movie, which is called Left at Wall. It's calling out Wall Street. It's based on, the thing that happened with GameStop where they,
Yes.
So it's
Oh, they
based,
screwed working people, of course.
yeah. Well, it's based on what happened there. And it's a fictionalized version of it. It's not like, to a T what happened. But basically, the guy who coordinates the big thing online, he's this socialist, struggling Hollywood writer, and his brother is a big hedge fund Wall Street guy. So he kind of cooks the thing up to screw his brother over because they butt heads, and it just sort of blossoms from there. So it's kind of an explainer film just about Wall Street. It's loosely based on that thing that happened, but it is a fictionalized version. I've already gotten emails with people saying, like, I don't think it was a writer who started it all. Like, it's not a real story. It's fiction. But yeah, that's the movie. I play the writer, and my brother is played by Gareth Reynolds, very funny comedian. He's on the Dollop podcast, if you're familiar with that. So we made a really cool trailer, and we're just trying to get the funds to make the film now. And I woke up this morning. For some reason, our GoFundMe was suspended. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's since been fixed. I got a thing saying that was fixed. I don't know what we did wrong. They sent a thing where they're like, you're not allowed to have any sweepstakes or giveaways or raffles. We weren't doing any of those things. We were thanking people. I don't know how, like, they're like, you're not allowed to have a return on investment. I don't know how thank yous are returns on investments. I mean, I was talking about it earlier, and I was like, I've never seen like a mob movie where they're like, we're here to collect. Oh, do I owe you money? No. We're here for our thank you. We're here for our thank you. Think you need to make a video thanking us, saying thank you for contributing to your movie. We better get a thank you. So I don't know how that qualifies as a return on investment. But for some reason, I guess we were in the wrong, or I was in the wrong somehow. I think it's fixed now, which is great. So that was how I started my morning. And then later in the morning, I was locked out of my own YouTube channel. No idea why. Was not given any explanation. But I was locked out of my YouTube channel. Still am. No clue why. But yeah, so it's been a weird time for me. It's been a weird day, to say the very least. So I'm navigating those waters, but I am working on the movie. The GoFundMe is back. I don't know why. I mean, look, there are people way more powerful than me who have made movies criticizing Wall Street before. I don't know how, like, I don't know how I'm like too out there or something, but I don't know. I guess it was a problem somehow, somewhere. But the problem has since been fixed. So if you want to contribute to this problematic film,
What's
you
the
can check it out.
GoFundMe?
Yeah, what's the GoFundMe?
You can go to GoFundMe and you can type in Left at Wall. Go to GoFundMe and just type in Left at Wall, and the movie trailer comes up. If you guys want to play it, we totally can. That's cool with me if you want. No pressure if you don't want to or don't.
I don't even know that we know how to.
Oh, I think
no worries.
All right.
Is this it, Ron? GoFundMe.com/left at wall.
You want to here? I'll type it in.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah.
Or I'll do it in the. Oh wait, I can't do it straight in the comments. I'll do it in the private chat.
All right.
Works. All right, so let's go find this trailer, Left at Wall. YouTube already hates our guts anywhere. If you think you're
we're
not allowed to have viewers on our show. This
and
is really
they just keep unsubscribing people. Like it's
Yeah,
just crazy.
It's so
I've
clear.
had some of that.
Yeah, it's so clear what they're up to.
I mean, I'm not gonna, I will accept the fact that there's probably people that voluntarily just say, "Oh, screw this chick," and they unsubscribe. I get that. That's fine. But I don't think that I've done anything so incendiary that would do it at the times that it seems to be happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've had some of that too. I think we all have, and yeah, I don't know what's going on. I mean, they're
Suppressing us.
YouTube. Yeah, well, Team YouTube tweeted me, and they're like, "What's happening?" And I'm like, "Well, you guys aren't letting me in my account for no reason. I have no idea. Like, I was not given any email. I was not given any, I mean, they were. I know, like, an article came out, like, oh, they're punishing channels that push anti-vax information. I've never done any such thing, and if they think I have, I'm curious to see this receipt. I've never done anything like that. So,
Well, this is one thing I will say that Jimmy has said, that Glenn Greenwald has said, a number of people have said, is that once you accept any form of censorship, it's only a matter of time before they come for you too.
Oh, totally. I agree. I mean, I don't think Silicon Valley should be determining what is and isn't free speech. I said this as far back as when Alex Jones got to platform. I am no fan of Alex Jones, but I'm like, look, if that guy didn't violate any free speech laws, which I'm not qualified to say whether he did or didn't. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but if he didn't, he shouldn't be deplatformed. All of these, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, they should all be, first of all, made public utilities, and they should be forced to follow the free speech laws of the United States. I mean, everyone's like, well, it's complicated. It's complicated. We already have laws around it. We have laws. We have free speech laws. They're a thing. They exist. And free speech doesn't just mean you can say whatever the hell you want without consequence. There are free speech laws. There are certain things. You can't defame somebody without consequence. You can't incite violence. So follow those freaking laws. And those laws don't include Mark Zuckerberg and his friends determining what is and isn't news. That's not what free speech laws are. So, we already have laws around that. So, I hear you. I hear you.
People love to make the distinction. Oh, well, those are private entities. Yes, by design, they're private entities, and they continue to do. They're willing to do the government's bidding as long as the government lets them stay private and make all their profits. Like, that's the whole relationship. So they are basically a stenographer of our government.
And again,
and the donor class.
Yeah. Well, which is who's in charge? That's the same people that own our Congress are the same people that own our media.
There we go.
Oh,
She's worried. She's like, I heard you saying you had a tough day. What is YouTube doing to you? I'll fix it.
I love black cats.
She's the best. She is the best. And it's October is coming up, which is a bittersweet thing for me, because that's the month where you're reminded that there are still superstitious people to a very unhealthy degree. I mean, it's disturbing. I mean, there are still a lot of clinics out there and rescues out there. They won't give people black cats in October.
I know,
because of what people do.
No,
it's true. And when you look at the statistics,
screwed up things to them. The Hindu Society will not. They do not adopt black cats.
But do people do?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is frightening, Peter. I mean, it really is. And I've always had
black cats and do weird
yeah.
things.
And I've had her for 15 years. She's 15 years old. Wow. And I've had her whole life. I mean, she was a stray. She wandered into my house when I was a senior in college. I guess I just shared how old I am. Damn it.
That's okay.
I was young. I graduated high school when I was 12. Do the math. Anyway, but so she and she came into my life in October. So, I mean, sometimes it's like in the back of my mind, I'm just like, and I went to Indiana University. So, small town Indiana. What if the wrong person would have found her before she ran into my house, and it's one of those things. So yeah, I got a very soft, I mean, I love all cats. And of course I got a soft spot for black cats, and Lucy's the best. She is the best.
Do you like dogs or only cats?
I love dogs. I love animals. I mean, my neighbor has a pit bull and I have Lucy. So we make the joke that we're kind of the corner of the island of misfit pets. And, but she's the sweetest dog and Lucy is the sweetest cat. and we all kind of look out for each other, and it's great. So yeah, no, and for any other cat people, LucyandRon.com is my cat comic that I'm hoping to bring back soon. It's been on hiatus for a little bit because the illustrator's been busy, but I'm trying to bring it back. So
That's really cool.
It absolutely is. All right, so we definitely want to share this trailer. Forgive me for I should be much more tech literate than
I say that to you all the
than I
time.
am. So we've got the trailer queued.
Just you have to share
just have
screen.
to-
You have to stop. You have to stop share that.
Okay, so
No, go into
stop screen.
Yeah, you have to, or it won't let you share something else.
Okay,
See, what happens if you just go into share? I don't think it'll happen.
we'll take a look. So that's stop screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ron, hang tight for a second.
Let's see if
gonna-
I can
no,
do
do your
it.
thing. I'm a StreamYard user as well. I know it's
We don't know anything, and I'm like a
I mean, it's a
dinosaur.
wonderful tool. I love it. Like, I really do
Yes.
love it. But it's like when you're kind of just operating it all while you're on mic, it's like, I mean, sometimes I get those comments where it's like, you take too long. And I'm like, it's
I know, but
hard.
you know what?
I'm
If somebody wants to
copying links.
volunteer, if somebody wants to volunteer to help us in this regard, by all means, drop us a line, Jen at generationalchange.com.
No, it's generationalchange@gmail.com.
I thought I don't have that.
No, you don't.
Okay, sorry.
Gotta fix that
Generationalchange@gmail.com.
And the truth is, we do this because we want to help. When this is,
But yeah, if somebody wants to help us out, by all means. Okay, so now you have.
So let's
you
tech.
just
So
stop.
let's see how techie we are. Hang on.
You're
All right,
not.
so
You
stop
suck.
screen.
Now share.
Now share.
And you need to. You click that you share video.
There
share
it
audio.
is.
Share audio.
Oh, yeah. Share the audio.
Where
Peter, the audio, Peter.
Yeah, for
I
real.
didn't it, but it gave
On
you
the
that.
thing.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's on the StreamYard. There is a share. I think it's share. No, that's video file.
You're doing it all wrong.
Okay, you want
Just I think honestly, I think that if we just do it, let's see what happens.
No. Let's expand this. There you go.
I'm going to propose. Shut up. God, I hope Sarah says yes. That would be shocking. The whole thing's been shocking. As an outsider, like the first time I saw you with her, I was like, you know what I mean? You look like you want a reality show. And she's, I'm happy because I didn't think there was any way this would last this long. Thanks.
I'm a writer. My more successful brother, he's on Wall Street. I don't know how it happened.
So, how was Dawn?
He's done.
It's Tiffany. They want to meet up tonight. Dawn has some exciting news.
I'm gonna send the clip notes. Give you a shitty email.
Dawn, come on. He's your brother.
Not my call. You wouldn't understand. The whole thing with Wall Street, John, is how complicated it is, okay? Like, we're going to short sell game bites, but to you wouldn't understand.
You know, I bet I would.
John, I just can't anymore. Save your drama for the page. I just can't.
What are you saying?
I think we need a break.
Awesome. No girlfriend, no work, no agent. Is this rock bottom? We're gonna do a short sell. You wouldn't understand. By the way, short selling, not that difficult. In a video game store, that's a pretty safe bet. The only way that could go wrong is if
Gigabytes. We need to buy shares of it.
What? Why?
A bunch of hedgers are trying to short sell it. We all buy shares. That drives the price up. Then, when they go to pay up, it's worth more than what they paid for it. We win, they lose.
You know, they always say if you can't beat them, join them. They never say join them to beat them. Not to beat them at their own game.
You're really passionate about this.
It's personal.
We'll start buying slowly. We've got some big names involved too. By the time the markets close, should be at least double the price.
I'll be able to pay for my surgery.
I'll be able to knock out all that student loan debt.
If we pull this off, it'll only be the beginning. They'll fear us because they'll have to. You know what destroys a market?
Fear. Let's do this.
That's fun.
That's good. I like
That's
it.
fun.
Yeah, for real.
We had fun. It's yeah. I mean, it's a fun movie. It's a fun explainer flick, and yeah, it probably is twice as funny high. So I'll take it.
Yeah, Chief.
Well, and that works because I'm usually high. So
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Everything's fun. That's what I'm talking about. Everything is just better that way.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna do and since you brought that up, then I'm gonna say this now. Ron, do me a favor. The next time you see Jimmy, tell him he needs to at least tell Jen thank you for the weed that what was that, gummies?
The
Weed
gummies.
weed
I did. I
gummies?
gave him some really nice gummies.
So these weed gummies when he was down here the last time, and you know they don't
I
really
don't care.
communicate, but
No.
Jen definitely knows good stuff. I will give her that. I'm not one to really get high, but you know she definitely knows the you know.
All right, I'll ask him about the gummies.
A strong advocate for the legalization of cannabis and then some.
Well, what's the deal in Florida? Is it not legal there?
We have medicinal.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We don't have recreational. There were two different ballot, referendums that they tried to put on. But the one that got closest to passing, and I'm glad it didn't pass, it didn't allow for home grow. There were all these. Basically, it would create the big pharma of weed in our state, and it would affect prices in a way, and we've had on Weed for Warriors, Sean Kiernan, where when you talk about it, and he's of course representing veterans, but just making it legal, because a lot of them can get their medicinal card, they can't afford to get their medicinal card, and they can't afford to buy marijuana. They can't afford it. So if it was treated as medicinal and it was treated as medicine and they could just get it, that would be, but it doesn't work that way. It's so expensive to get your medical marijuana card, and you have to update it every, I want to say it's 8 months.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, yeah, it's ridiculous. It doesn't even go a whole year. And so for people who are struggling with things like, PTSD and maybe aren't employed or whatever currently, and they don't have resources, you can't afford to just get that. And so I won't support anything that doesn't allow for home grow. Because really that's what keeps it on the table for everybody.
So that's interesting. I mean, obviously, I've never, I'm not familiar with Florida's specific proposition, but I do know from experience in other places. Sometimes with these things, you really have to read in between the lines, because sometimes they're not what they appear to be. And what a great system, huh?
Yeah, well, that's the problem, and people don't know, and they mean well, and someone will say, "Oh, we're doing a petition for legalization of cannabis," and people will sign it because they want to legalize cannabis, that's what they want. And so I'm actually glad that one didn't get through, because I really thought it would, and then it would be harder to set it up so that and it also was detrimental to smaller farmers, which tend to be people of color. So Black farmers were being called, it has to do with the distinction between what's a farmer, what's a grower. And all this kind of stuff to sort of create a real oligarchy of cannabis.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too with stuff like that. When you pass something that doesn't do what it says it's going to do, it's harder to fix it later. So sometimes it's you'll see a proposition and you'll be like, this proposition, when you just read the title, sounds great. Then you read the fine print and you're like, "Oh, this isn't the way." Exactly. And then you're like, "Okay, so I feel like I got to vote against this, because if it gets through, it'll be tougher to fix later." The other side of that too is, well, we have to build the momentum all over again to get it back in the spotlight, to get the right thing to pass. And it's almost like politics is a very tricky game.
You think?
Almost like it.
No, but
So-
you know, I would normally say that politics is a tricky game, but I think that there's this whole new generation that's, you know, really been woken up over the last 5 years. And even though things have not really gone our way that much, I think a lot of people are really getting hip to the way things are, and they're not as easily fooled anymore. And I think it's only a matter of time before the movement grows big enough where they're just not going to be able to get away with it like they used to. And we agree that obviously the way that things should have been dealt with over the past few years, you know, probably should have been done better without question. But I do think we're going to get somewhere in the not too distant future. I know things look kind of bleak right now, but as I said, you know, people are just getting way too hip to the game, and you're not going to be able to fool them like you used to. So when it comes to something like marijuana legalization, it's like everyone knows that if you're not allowing for home grow, then it's all about monopolization for the big,
and that only hurts us. It's
corporations.
already and that's the thing, is that people don't realize legalization often creates a higher price point.
Yep.
Makes it harder for people to actually get weed.
Yeah, and again, that's why.
Which is why we're better off with them just decriminalizing it.
Decriminalization.
And and just letting people live and let live, and just get your weed how you get your weed.
So since you are known for getting your news on with Ron, we typically do our news and amuse segment on Thursdays, but we are including you in that segment. And what better
Do
place?
we even know if he wanted to be included in this?
Ron, are you okay with being included in discussing?
Hey, I'm
Julian?
here. I'm here.
So we're going to talk about Julian Assange. We're going to talk about Biden and DeSantis, and of course Alfredo Cuomo, because that's really his name now.
I can't help myself with that guy.
Yeah.
He is
hilarious.
This is what happens when I sit around like high doing Canva. This is the kind of stuff that you get. You get like the superimposition of Fredo Corleone over Chris Cuomo.
Well, of course. And then, of course, we have the environment. But, you know, let's obviously start with the latest revelation on Julian Assange. It's obviously no surprise that the CIA tried to kill him. Thankfully, they did not succeed in that. But it's at the point now where so it seems that so many of the actions that, you know, the shadow government takes is really to just scare people from ever attempting to do any of the work that Assange has already done and to never do it again. How do you see, you know, the way that this whole thing is unfolded and where it stands right now?
Well, when I saw this latest piece of news that confirmed that the Trump administration was literally trying to murder the guy, you know, I made a 1-minute video where it was just like going through piece by piece how ridiculous this case against him is. And I went through, you know, their big star witness is that guy from Iceland who was embezzling money from WikiLeaks, was informing on Julian Assange since 2014, is a convicted sex criminal, and admitted everything he said was a lie. That's their big star person who's holding the glue together on this this awesome case. Another thing, here's how United States law works. If you publish something a whistleblower gave you, that's not illegal. That's not against the law. What is against the law is if you hack something illegally to get it, which is why they've been torturing Chelsea Manning for 6 years. They want her to confess that Julian Assange helped her hack something, which she has not done. She has not done that. And I don't know about you, but if I was tortured for 6 years and somebody helped me hack something, I think I would have given that up by now after 6 years of torture. I'm pretty sure.
I know Chelsea Manning is pretty badass.
She is pretty badass, but I'm just saying I don't think Julian Assange helped her hack anything. She's telling the truth. So, you know, kudos to her. But yeah, so it's such a, I mean, to quote my buddy Gordon Dimmick, who's over in the UK, calling this a kangaroo court is an insult to kangaroos. It's so freaking ridiculous. This guy should be freed immediately. And then after he's freed, as far as I'm concerned, he should never have to worry about money another day in his life after what he's been through. And then the work is not over, because it's not enough that he is freed. What the work then becomes is trying to build a society where nothing like this can ever happen again to anybody. Yeah. This is a complete assault on freedom of the press, and it's honestly a dark spot for humanity. Really. I mean,
I think it's a huge thing. Like, I think this is going to go down. The case with Julian Assange is going to be one of those most shameful times in history.
Yeah.
If humans even exist past, you know, melting ice caps and far enough in the future to look back on this. But this is a huge thing. Like, this is going to be the thing that would be remembered as where the First Amendment went to die. And I've been saying this for how many years? 12 years. Like, how I can't even know how many years. And it's just not been taken as seriously by most people. Of course, it doesn't get media coverage because you just can't talk about that. We get
Well,
demonetized
yeah, that's the
for
thing.
just talking about Julian Assange.
Me too. I mean, I think so many people, one thing I did, and I know this is a very small thing, but I feel like if everyone did it, I posted just on like my personal, like even my personal Facebook, which I seldom even use, but I posted just on social media and I was like, look, if you have only heard what cable news has thrown up at you when it comes to Julian Assange, if you only have heard, the corporate propaganda vomit when it comes to what's going on with Julian Assange, and you're wondering what's going on there, feel free to just ask me anything about anything you've heard, about any questions you have. Feel free to ask me, and I'll just tell you what I know. As someone who's been paying a fair amount of attention to this, I don't consider myself an expert, but I'm paying as much attention as I possibly can. And I've spoken to some of the experts, and I'm not going to shame you. I'm not going to be, oh, how did you not know that? You're so stupid. I'm just going to answer you to the best of my ability. And I got emails from strangers. I got emails from family members, actually. All kinds of people just saying, hey, yeah, I've heard this, this, and this. And they reported, they repeated some bullshit that they were told. And they were like, so what's the story that you know? And I told them my take on it. And, I've had a couple people going, hey, you changed my mind. I was wrong. I looked into some of the stuff you were saying. I was wrong about this. And, I learned more now. And I think... I think that really is an important thing, albeit a micro thing. I think stuff like that is really important because I do think as a species, we're better than this. I really do believe that. We're not this bad. But I think a lot of people just really aren't aware.
Yeah. And for anybody who is just listening, I do have, scrolling across the bottom, the Department of Justice comment line 202-353-1555. And you can call and tell the Department of Justice you want them to drop the case against Julian Assange. I like to just sort of flash this across and, hopefully everyone takes turns like just calling it and flooding Merrick Garland's line. And the other one is we need everybody to be asking President Biden to pardon Daniel Hale.
Yes.
That needs to be happening right now as well. I'll create a banner at some point. My goal is to have Ilhan Omar come on and then talk about it. And because she's the only person I know of that spoke up and asked for that on behalf of Daniel Hale.
And
go.
Go.
Well, I was just going to add real quick, since you brought up Daniel Hale, the thing that both those cases have in common, too, is the Espionage Act, which we really need to talk about. I mean, the Espionage Act was brought about during World War I and then again in World War II. It's very vague, it's very broad, and it basically says you can't go against the military interests of the United States on behalf of a foreign power or whatever else. It was written in the context of a freaking world war. That's the context in which it was written under. It has no place in today's society. So when is the only time it's used? Well, it's all about the interests of the United States military. What's the interest of the United States military, or at least the military-industrial complex? Imperialism and big oil. That's their interest. So when are they going to utilize the Espionage Act against a whistleblower exposing their crimes?
Right. And it's fundamentally just... It's ludicrous, and clearly it's just a matter of how we treat whistleblowers in general in this country. It's a massive problem. I mean, clearly there's a distinction between what happened on the side where you're talking about Chelsea Manning and Daniel Hale versus what's going on with like Julian Assange. Technically, yeah, there was a violation of whatever their code was in their position, and I get that. I mean, I understand that. That's a rule that was broken. I get that. But it really is we need to err in favor of the greater good. And the greater good is that we should know what our government is doing on behalf of us, especially when those things are illegal.
That's why when all of that drama was going down over the past few months with Jimmy and TYT, we did not get involved. But the one thing we did do was when Anna Kasparian went after Aaron Mate in one of the most blatant examples of fascism that, I mean, again, was basically trying to silence him and say that his reporting is false and you shouldn't trust him. And I'm just thinking.
And then she went after Rania.
Yeah. It's like, what are you doing? I mean, look, you can disagree, and that's fine. But to basically do what you did was such a blatant violation of the First Amendment. And
how many real journalists do we even have? Like,
Not many.
can we please stop smearing the few journalists that we actually have?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, and I have no desire to rehash that segment that they did, but they lied about him multiple times and then double, triple, and quadruple down on it, just making stuff up about the guy, and it was pretty gross. It wasn't a disagreement on ideas; it was just lying about a journalist,
and it was
because you don't like. And because Aaron ratioed him on Twitter. This can all be brought back to a incredibly ridiculous tone-deaf tweet.
Yeah, but
that
it was just absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah.
There was no motivation to do it other than, like you said, pettiness. There wasn't something linked to it directly that suggested that it was absolutely warranted. And that's why, as you were saying, and I think this is a great way to wrap up the Assange conversation. You remember when Jim Acosta was out peddling his book about journalistic integrity? And he was at, Ron, if you remember, he was at like some, I guess, like Q&A, and somebody brought up Julian Assange, and the guy looked like a deer in headlights. Like he didn't even know what to say.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah, I remember that actually. I mean, vaguely, but
he knew what to say. He wasn't going to say it because it would affect his book sales.
There you go.
And that's all that matters.
Well, Randy Credico said something about it at a dinner, and he got kicked out or something.
Yeah.
Like he said, Julian Assange. I was at the White House press dinner, and they kicked him out.
Yeah, you're not allowed to. We'll get demonetized even just for talking about it.
Well, we all got to stick together and make sure that we talk about those topics.
Story.
So obviously, we are of the mind, at least this is, from our observation, just based on the way politics is moving here in Florida. But we were recently informed, not going to say who it was, but let's just say that Governor DeSantis is already on the GOP circuit around the country fundraising.
For 24 for president.
Yeah, what that tells me is he's not.
God.
Yeah, he's not fundraising.
He just had a fundraiser in Buffalo.
He is the GOP's pick for 24. They are going to try every which way to make sure that it's him and not Trump. And you're seeing Trump now going through the motions because he threw Governor Kemp in Georgia under the bus the other day and was telling people to vote for Stacey Abrams. So you never know what he is, such a wild card in what he may be up to.
But we do know that Ron DeSantis is running.
If there is the heir apparent, and if there is somebody that you can say is most likely to be the GOP nominee and ultimately, the next president, Ron DeSantis is the person. And the fact that Biden has already called him out by name really says a lot. Well, first of all, Biden's political instincts are terrible, but the fact that he thought it was necessary to even address him was not smart.
No, he should not have mentioned him.
No. And so, there's going to be that slow trickle, if you will. But, we're letting everybody know now that this is going to be a big issue. And in regards to, again, it's all political gamesmanship. No one gives a damn about the Haitian refugees at the border. This is all about which side can benefit more in terms of political capital, especially as we, draw to that 1 year mark of, next year's midterms when things really start to ramp up. But we were discussing the other day, when you think about the fact that Congress was able to earmark another $1 billion for Israel for their Iron Dome like that, how easily could they earmark $1 billion
for Haiti
to help Haiti?
Or how about just the people living under a bridge in Del Rio?
Yeah.
How about helping them? Just a thought. There's a lot of uses for the money. But this lawsuit is ridiculous. This lawsuit is about the catch and release practice. That term, by the way, disgusts me. These are people, not fish.
Yeah.
But it's DeSantis is suing the Biden administration over their catch and release policy because catch and release refers to the practice of releasing some undocumented immigrants deemed not to be flight risks and not dangerous on their own recognizances or with monitoring technology following arrest. So apparently he likes to just detain people without due process or habeas corpus. And so the idea of that, I guess, is disturbing enough to him that it's worth suing the executive branch of our government. That's what's happening. That's what it is.
That's incredible because, I mean, and let's be honest here, Biden's continued pretty much all of Trump's policies. The kids are still in cages. We just call them detention centers now. So, I mean, it's not brutal enough for Ron DeSantis. We've been doing the same stuff for years and years. It's not.
He's needing a way to draw a distinction, right?
Well, that's the danger. That's always been the danger of the corporate media. And they are, especially because it's controlled in DC and New York and to an extent Los Angeles. And they are all with the neoliberal wing of the Democratic Party. And so their primary focus is on protecting Biden at all costs, no criticism whatsoever. And if there is criticism, it's extremely light. But that's not good because, as you know, one of the things that they were contemplating doing with the Haitian refugees at the border was putting them in Guantanamo Bay. You can imagine if they had done something like that, something that should have been closed, mind you.
Well, this is what the lawsuit says. So basically, filed by Florida Republican Attorney General Ashley Moody in Pensacola, claims that under catch and release, migrants who are illegally released by the Biden administration are arriving or will arrive in Florida, harming the state's quasi-sovereign interests and forcing it to incur millions of dollars in expenses. That's the lawsuit.
Yeah, that's pretty callous. And no surprise.
Florida.
Yeah.
So anyway, yes, that's welcome to Ron
Yeah, your guy is, that guy, wow.
I know.
He's
a step up.
He is something.
He's a step up for us. You do know that, right? We had Rick Scott.
Yeah.
Oh, he's not as bad as Rick. I don't know.
No. Well, first of all, Rick Scott's a murderer.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that
he's
guy,
Voldemort.
The fact that guy's even allowed, with the Medicare fraud that he was involved in, and the amount of blood that he has on his hands.
Yeah. So DeSantis is a step up for us.
Yeah, that's because it just goes to show you how low the bar is.
Yeah, that's pretty. That guy. Yeah, he is really something to behold, and he just. I think. And the scary thing, and it's way too early to be talking 2024, but if that's if he's one of the big guys and he gets it, I don't see whoever the Democrats throw up there beating him.
No.
There's also
the thing. He's not unlikable.
Yeah, Ron, there's a huge factor with DeSantis that hasn't been seen. Probably, I would say you'd have to go back.
He's much more likable than Trump.
Yeah, probably. You probably have to go all the way back to Reagan because Reagan did serve in the military. DeSantis served in the military, and in states like Arizona and states like Georgia and states like Pennsylvania, that's a big deal. And having sort of that steady hand GOPer is going to attract a lot of those independent voters that would not vote for Trump.
Because Trump came off like a crazy loose cannon because he is.
Which he is.
And DeSantis isn't.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like, all the worst policies with a more calm, appealing persona.
That's why, we were talking about earlier, as much as everybody wants to point the finger at Manchin and at Sinema, I don't see Joe Biden, using the bully pulpit as the president coming out saying we have to pass this reconciliation bill. We need to lower the Medicare age to 60. We need to include Bernie's proposal of expanding Medicare to include dental, vision, and hearing. And we need to have a robust climate policy. And the fact that he's not doing that is basically just reaffirming this notion that if they get slaughtered in the midterms and ultimately allow this guy to become the next president, who's really at fault here?
We know.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't on us.
Yeah.
We're trying to make them better. And the reality is it is all about corporate special interest money. That's all this is. You said that politics is complicated. It isn't, because at the end of the day, it all comes back to that.
Money.
It all comes back to corporate special interest money. And so we are also seeing, as we will now transition to the wonderful story of Fredo.
You can have that because I don't need to talk about that.
No, it's just, but again,
I have nothing to say about that.
It's so emblematic of the fact that, he's just another product of nepotism, as are so many of these others. He never would have been in a position where he could, he's just such a doofus.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Chris Cuomo, Ron?
He has a job he is grossly unqualified for. I'm a little bummed out my prediction didn't come true. I was predicting that the Cuomo brothers were just going to switch jobs. Andrew was going to take over on CNN, and I call them Fredo and Elder Fredo. That's what I call them. So Elder Fredo was going to go on CNN, and then other Fredo was gonna become governor of California. And if he didn't like a bill, instead of vetoing it, he was going to throw it down the stairs. because he's a tough guy. But
he's
yeah,
tough.
my prediction didn't come true. But
That's disappointing. I think of them kind of like Hans and Franz.
Yeah, that's good.
They're just such bullies. The Cuomo brothers are bullies, whether it's like dealing with
They
women
are.
in a certain way or just dealing with anybody. Like they're just bullies. And it's just, I think people are just sick of that.
Everybody looks at the way that Trump's kids act, and they look at the way that Biden's, son acts. And the reality is, you could look at Meghan McCain, you can look at a lot of them. Cuomo's are just another example of the detrimental nature of nepotism, especially in
totally.
politics. Mario
Liz Cheney, the Clintons, it goes and it's on the Wall Street.
Rand Paul ain't his papa. That's for damn sure.
No.
Yeah. And it's and it happens with the Wall Street Team R and Wall Street Team D. It happens. And we have no room to like point the finger at like royal bloodlines and stuff like that. We do the same thing. We just call it something different.
Yeah.
I think but again, I just hope we're getting to the point now where people are starting to look at this and say, yeah, this ain't how it should be done. It should be merit-based, but it also should have some integrity. But ultimately, corporate media is not going to change. They are completely co-opted by corporate special interests. And that's why independent shows like ours, even though we are dealing with the corporate algorithm, we have to continue to work together in concert to make sure that the right message is getting out there. Because the fact that somebody like Chris Cuomo has, I guess at times, at least on the Democratic side, the highest rated show out of anybody.
We have look,
I mean, talk about a low friggin' bar. My God.
But apparently this is the second of recent accusations against Chris Cuomo in the workplace for harassment.
And you know what usually ends up happening, Ron? Once somebody has the courage, like Lindsey Boylan had the courage to come forward against Andrew,
there'll be more.
There's probably a half dozen more women who have been harassed by this guy, and now they're just lawyering up to make sure that they do it the right way and don't get screwed in the process. But CNN is such a joke to begin with, and if they
don't get Cuomo'd.
Yeah, well, shit. Well, then they could have little Brian Stelter running the show the rest of the time.
Yeah, that guy. I was gonna say that guy. That guy. Oh, did you? I see no problem with you interviewing your brother.
I don't see any conflict of interest here. I think we're doing a great job. So yeah, I mean, when you got a guy
he
like
looks
that,
like that's what he should sound like.
Yes.
Yeah. He looks like that's exactly what he should sound like, and it's like he is just a walking punchline. I mean, there was that one time where he's like, "We don't care about ratings," and everyone just laughed in his face.
Ted Koppel left right out.
Like, they just laughed right in his face. And what did he do recently? The Cuomo thing was totally ridiculous. There was something else. I can't think of the particular.
He's just a goober.
He totally
Stephen
is.
Colbert has completely sold out, which is so sad.
I don't know that he ever didn't. We just like the character he played on Jon Stewart's show. We never knew Stephen Colbert. We just knew that character.
But when Colbert is literally dunking on Stelter, and it's so bad. It's like if you're allowing him to dunk on you, man, you're really bad.
Well, when we did him when I did a graphic for him as bootlicker, I had that little beanie with the propeller on it on top of his head.
Because he's a little dunce cap.
He is just such a goober.
And you know who
he had the kick me
Ron,
sign.
You know who he is. He's Martin Prince from The Simpsons. Like he has evolved into basically the teacher's pet who ultimately did everything by the book and was able to secure a high-paying job. And he just laughs at everybody now. Yeah, I know I'm a dork. I know I'm so stupid and no one actually takes me seriously.
Like Mr. Bill.
But I'm totally making a lot of money, and that gives me credibility. Oh my Lord. And
that's the thing with those kind of gigs. It's like you're gonna be a media watchdog for a corporate, privately owned network who bows down to their advertisers.
I mean, at this point, it's beyond parody. Reliable sources.
It's beyond parody. I mean, it's like he's like a parody of a watchdog. He's like the
That show's always been that way, by the way.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah. So.
And we hate to end on a morbid note, but it is something that needs to be talked about because
I'm so sad. Look at that.
The climate crisis is the existential threat of our lifetime, and we must deal with it. And it's gotta, again, and as much as we do support electoral politics, it can't be the sole way that you make this happen. You must have a movement outside of it. And that is the only way. You have to have enough people, basically, as you've been emphasizing, Ron, a general strike. Something has to be done, because we're going to destroy this planet unless we are forced to change. That is the only way it's going to happen. And when you see these species just completely going extinct,
I'm so sad.
It's terrible. Do you want to?
Well, this, first of all, and I'm a bird person. Like, I really love birds. I do. I love birds, not birds in cages. I don't, in fact, that bothers me immensely, but I love birds. So this caught my eye, but apparently 23 species have just been declared extinct. And basically now that means there's like a 6-month comment period that people have an opportunity, if they can locate something in this species, before they actually declare it officially extinct. And Woody the woodpecker was included in that.
That's the actual.
No, it's not Woody the woodpecker. Okay. It's an ivory-billed woodpecker, but it looks an awful lot like Woody the woodpecker. And that really, it's a lot of things that people don't think of as important, right? Because it's not necessarily polar bears. It's certain kinds of mussels, certain kinds of like fish, certain kinds of things. And people do not understand the repercussions that those things have on the bigger ecosystem. Like, you can't just get rid of a certain type of mussel and think that's not going to affect whatever eats that in whatever area that is. And this is a real 23 things. Like, this is the most species declared extinct at one time, like, I think ever.
I mean, we've had, what was it? It was in that part of Ontario, like off the shoreline in Ontario, which is far north, folks. And fish were cooking in the water because of like how hot it was getting. And yeah, I mean, the crisis is here. Like it's not like it is here. And even Joe Biden is saying that. He's not doing anything about it, really, but he's saying it. And, on this eve, we're going to see what happens. I mean, we might know something in real time. We'll see if we get that $3.5 trillion spending bill in addition to the 1.2 quote bipartisan infrastructure package, which, by the way, by bipartisan, they mean Republicans and gems like Kristen Sinema, by the way.
They just mean corporate. It's the corporate
big time
package.
They're trying to make it out like the 1.2 is just a compromise on the 3.5. It's not. They're two completely different things. And the 3.5 does not go near far enough all on its own. That's already a compromise of a compromise on a compromise. There's at least some better things in it. The 1.2 is a total scam, and they're already trying to decouple them. So, I mean, I'm not super enthusiastic about what might happen here. We'll know more by the morning. But yeah, I mean, the time for bold action was yesterday. We are far behind, and we got to act bold, and time is running out. I mean, it's to the point where the media is just saying, hey, if you're under 40, your world's going to suck. Which is it? I mean, talk about messaging. The corporate media, for people like my generation, millennials and younger, like the media's message is learn how to compromise, you whiny babies. And then their other message is, if we don't act bold, your life is going to suck hard. Well, that's a little conflicting, isn't it? We're supposed to compromise. And you're like, well, maybe your life's just going to suck like a little lot. Like, what? It's time for bold action. It's time for freaking bold. We can't compromise on the freaking planet. That's not something you compromise on.
Right. They're trying to come up with a number, like as if you have a choice as to whether or not to work with the situation that we have. Yeah. Like that there's an option that we could just do something else. Our manatees are dying.
Yeah. And this is one of those circumstances where the justification behind going after AOC hard does make a lot of sense because, she does have a heavy influence. A lot of people do listen to her, and she's trying to walk this fine line. And it's like, no, you have to treat this like you don't know what's coming tomorrow. I mean,
you don't vote present. That's not a choice.
You've got to be willing to take a stand.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you have to listen to who, when he goes on his rant about you, and then
take a stand.
Curl up in a little ball because you don't like the fact that he's got a huge following and people come after you due to the fact that people had slaved to get her into Congress. I had helped. A lot of people had helped, and she's there now. And while I do think that she is an upgrade, if you will, over Joe Crowley, she is just way too caught up in being a celebrity, and you've gotta call it where it is. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of impact that she could make, but she, of course, is thinking 3-4 moves ahead, like a lot of these career, politicians like to do. You have an opportunity right now to basically, I mean, think about the impact that Alex could have if she just said, I want every person who considers themselves a supporter of the Sunrise Movement to get to DC on this particular day, and we are going to get 1 million people in the street in DC. And I guarantee you, if she worked on that, she can make it happen. You know,
well,
that's
here's
not
the thing, man. We worship politicians the hardest. They do the least.
Yes.
And, you know, the thing about, you know, people say, oh, people are being too hard on the squad and this and that. I've always asked all those people, I said, point to something that is being asked of them that is not within their power. Like point to it. Tell me what it is. When you look at what people are asking of them, vote as a block, use your leverage, do this, do that, try to rally people for something a little bit greater than selling merchandise. I mean, all of these things are things they have the power to do. No one, oh, they're outnumbered. No one's denying that. We all have eyes. We all can count. We know you're outnumbered. We're asking you to use the leverage that you do have, and you're not using it. If you use the leverage you do have, then that'd be better. But they're not. And it's not just like one time. It's time and time again where it's like, oh, there were just enough votes that were present, or in some cases, yes, where they shouldn't have been, yes, that this thing got through. The Capitol Police got more funding. The Iron Dome's happening. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. If it was like 50-50, that'd be different. But it's always going one way. And that's the freaking problem. And it's because, look, if you play it the company way, you got a ticket to Easy Street. You got a ticket to Easy Street for the rest of your career. So you know what I want to be when it comes to the squad who are supposed to be our allies? I want to be their excuse. And what I mean by that is I want them to go, hey, Mama Bear, you see those people out there? Those are my supporters. Those are the people that got me in office. Here's the thing about them. They're really freaking pissed off, and justifiably so. And their support for me is not unconditional. They are not unconditional support. They are policy first, and I come in a distant second at best. That's the way it should be. It's not about a personality. It's about a policy. Your loyalty should be to policies, not politicians. And, you know, so they're going to hold me to account, or they're going to replace me. And if they replace me, the next person might not be willing to play ball at all. So you got to give some. You got to give some. That's what I want to be. The French do not put up with that. You piss them off, they cover your house in shit. Literally. They don't tolerate anything. They go on strike. They don't put up with it.
I got my vest.
Yeah, there you go. You got your vest. I mean,
I got my vest.
That's what you got to do. You know, I mean, they're supposed to be our allies. They're not acting like it. So start acting like it. That's not too mean. That's not harsh. That's not even personal. I don't care about, I mean, look, I know you guys, I mean, obviously electoralism is more your thing. Cause I mean, you ran Jen, and my thing, I'm not a big electoralism guy. I'm a general strike guy. People talk about an inside outside approach. Hello, part of the outside right here.
Yeah.
And it takes both. I don't discount. I mean, I got plenty of friends that are more
inside.
inside.
On the inside need to be working with the people on the outside.
I agree. I agree 110%.
That when Force the Vote came about, if people on the inside of that approach the people in Congress ahead of time, that is the way it works together so that they can stand in Congress and say, you see the people outside, this is what they want.
And the one thing that I would say,
together.
you know, we're extremely grateful for Bernie and how far he has awoken so many people in this country. But Bernie, you have got millions of people, millions that you could be having active right now. You don't even need to be the one running it. You can pass it off to somebody else who was working on the campaign and just say, well,
there's a lot of people.
I want you to engage the people who support my campaign, and I want you to get them out there, and I want them to be knocking on doors in Los Angeles, in New York, in Chicago, and all those places, and get people on the street.
I mean, we definitely have that here in South Florida. A lot of what is considered our progressive groups are basically defunct Bernie groups that are wandering the desert like nomads, not knowing where to go because Bernie's not in it anymore. Sure. And that was really their whole purpose. And, you know, they would say things like, well, we're just so disappointed and this is so exhausted and so emotionally draining. And the bottom line is they're not progressives. They were just Bernie supporters.
No. And that's why,
and that's like a big difference. It's like when Jerry Garcia died and some people started to follow Fish, but a lot of people are just still sort of out there.
Where do we
not
go?
Knowing.
Where do we go?
Well,
I mean, look, here's the thing. At the end of the day, the thing that Bernie did that I'll always be thankful for, which is basically what you said, Peter, he made a lot of us realize we're not as alone as we thought we were.
Correct.
I used to just think there just aren't many people that think like me in the country I live in. Like I'm a lefty, and in the United States, I mean, and I still feel this way. Being a lefty in the United States is like being a surfer in Nebraska, and the only way to get to the ocean is by walking. I still feel like that's the case. I really do. But what I've learned is that there's other people who want to walk too. And, you know, maybe if we all walk together, we can actually get somewhere. And Bernie did show us that. There's a ton of things Bernie has done since that have pissed me off to no end.
But we're all talking about Medicare for all.
We're all talking about Medicare for all. And we're kind of just wondering, and we're like, okay, this guy shown a big flashlight that needed to be shown. What do we do now? And that's what, as a whole, we haven't quite figured out.
Correct.
Well, Ron,
and it's going to take time. But
yeah, and I think this is a great way to conclude the show, because one of the things that we had Ash Kalra on recently, I'm sure you know who Ash is. He's the gentleman who put forth the CalCare bill, universal health care in California.
He's a great legislator out there. He was great.
We will announce it now. If God strike me down if he exists for saying this,
I
because
wish you
we
wouldn't.
just don't want to knock on it. But we are supposed to have our first congressional representative on the show on Monday. It is supposed to be.
We're not saying who.
Whoa.
We're not saying who.
All right, so we won't say who. Well, let's put it this way:
We're not saying who.
It's somebody that you know. Let's leave it at that. And so, what we're hopeful for is that I actually think that the way that we can evolve on this inside-outside movement has got to be at the state level. I don't think we're going to get anything done on Capitol Hill. I think it is painfully obvious that it is so unbelievably corrupt, and you're always going to have a Kirsten Sinema or a Joe Manchin ready to, just
play the bad guy,
just be the rotating villain, take the heat. They're going to cash out their chips when the time is right. They don't want to pass this bill. That's the reality. Bernie wants it passed, and a lot of others do, but they are a very small microcosm of what the representation of our federally elected officials are. However, at the state level, and especially in a state like California, there is a lot of juice to get stuff done. And Gavin is going to be vulnerable next year, just like the current governor in New York, Kathy Hochuli, is vulnerable. There is a movement for universal health care, and it's got to be just like Canada.
New York Health Act.
You have got to pass it they passed it in Saskatchewan, and then they passed it all throughout Canada.
Yes.
That is the same thing with the environmental movement. Forget what the frick you think you're going to do. And we have one of the best sunrise movements in the whole country down here in Miami. That is a huge difference versus the sunrise movement in Washington, D.C., because as you know, they got in bed with the Democratic establishment, and they are not the same.
Then they're
not
done.
the same.
No.
Once you lock arms with them, it's over. So now you have to focus on the local chapters and build that up. And I think if we focus on those types of victories, eventually our movement will grow big enough where they can't stop us on the Hill anymore. Right now, they can just knock us over with a stiff breeze. But if we start building really strong state infrastructural power, that's the future as far as I can see. And that is something that I think from an inside-outside strategy, if we really focused, in my opinion, on the next legislative session on CalCare, you could easily get hundreds of thousands of people in the streets in California saying, we are getting our effing health care, whether you like it or not. You have a supermajority in California. There are a handful of Democrats that are standing in the way, so we'll primary their asses. And that'll cost a lot less money than worrying about a federal primary. So as far as I can see, that is one of the battles that I'm focused on, and I get very passionate about it because I do think there is an opportunity here to, to get in the door.
In California and New York.
In California and New York especially. Yeah. We love the ladies with Whole Washington. Jen, you have your lovely red beret right over there.
Yeah, they're great. I love them.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the problem in the state of Washington is they have no real infrastructure. But in California and New York, there is an infrastructure of elected officials and movement on the outside where they want this. And now it's a matter of how we bring this together. And I think it has to be done with two particular policies: the environment and healthcare. And if we focused on those two, I really think we could get somewhere. And that's why we have to have these conversations. And we're extremely grateful that you came on tonight. And I have no doubt that we will continue it as we go forward. And if you think, the suggestion that I just made is good, I hope we can continue, spreading that word and saying, maybe this is the path that we have to try.
No, I am with you. I'm very supportive of, I believe it's AB 1400 is the actual number of the bill. And, I would prefer something federal immediately. That would be better, obviously. But I mean, I agree with you. I just don't think that's the way it's going to happen, and we can't wait.
No.
So yeah, Canada went one province at a time, which is basically like 5 states. We got to do the same thing here. Is it totally ideal? No, but is it probably the best strategy to get it before ever? Yeah, because we're
Yeah.
going to be waiting a long, long time. If we want to get it federally. I don't even see a finish line. But at the state level, if California gets it or New York gets it, and
Oh,
they do have a chance, that's going to freaking spread. That's going to
Yeah.
spread. I mean, I hate to use the phrase "spread like wildfire" being a Californian. All right,
Yeah, don't
that's
tempt fate.
that's not a good way to put it. But you know what
No.
I mean. And so yeah, I'm with you, and I really love what they're doing in whole Washington by just kind of setting a standard for what it means to have that that brand and that effort. I think they're really inspiring a lot of people, and it's helping what we're doing down here in California too. So yeah, Peter, I'm with you.
And remember, I'm going to give you 2 examples, 2 great examples. In Canada, they passed it in Saskatchewan. You know how long it took to pass it throughout the whole country? 6 years. That's it. Now, obviously, we can't wait, but you know what? That's probably how long it'll take here. They passed cannabis legalization in Colorado in 2014, I believe, is when it happened.
That sounds right.
We now have decriminalization in, I believe, 35 or 40 states, and it's legal in over 15 or 20 states. That's how fast this can move.
Yeah.
And public opinion is totally there. So it's like, I mean, you have people in Mississippi is ready for it now. I mean, Mississippi is ready for legal pot. So it's one of those things when people see it and they see how it works and they see that it's good. Well, I mean, we're already pretty much there. I mean, there's a lot of Republicans that are ready for Medicare for all now, but that's just going to multiply even more and more because the whole like socialized medicine, that boogeyman is already going away. And it's going to go away permanently when people see it work. They're going to be like, no, it's not. That's not what. Yeah, we need universal health care now.
We're on the same page 1,000%. And obviously, if Bernie was president, he would have been completely hogtied in regards to what Congress would have done. But he would have had executive order capability. He would have had the ability as the executor, as the chief executive, to pull our troops out of the Middle East. And he would have had the executive authority to expand Medicare during a healthcare emergency. He would have had the ability to decriminalize cannabis across the board, take it off the Schedule 1.
Cancel student loan debt.
100%. Yeah, he absolutely would have done that. That is the difference between him and Biden. Unfortunately, we're with a guy like Biden right now. So you know what we got to do, guys? I know we don't want to talk too much about electoral politics as we close, Ron, but if you have any hope and any prayer of making Nina Turner 2028 a reality, we have to start planning these fights right now. We have to build these state coalition fights so that way when we have the opportunity, because it ain't going to be in 24, but in 28, if you really want to put somebody in the Oval Office who is not bought and paid for by corporate special interests, we need to start building this movement right now.
Somebody's going to have to beat President DeSantis in 28.
Learn from our mistakes that we have made, because there were plenty of mistakes.
Or you're getting him for 2 terms.
Yeah, we're not. Well, we're not getting. Let's live in the moment right now. Let's focus on how the hell we can get CalCare.
It requires strategic planning.
Yes, well, it does. It does. But you know what? We have the chess pieces right now where we can really start taking advantage of it. So, Ron, let's continue the conversation. And in the meantime, guys, GoFundMe. No, that's not the one. That's
GoFundMe /
I
and then another. Yeah, that's just the thing that they. Here, I put it in the private.
No, it's there. We have.
No, I put it up before.
Yeah, no, it's
yeah, sorry, it's a little wonky, and people can also check it out on my Twitter. It's my pinned tweet, and that also leads to the link. And you can check it out on my YouTube channel. Ron Placone, and then over on Rockfin if you're on Rockfin. And this was a great conversation. And check me out online at ronplacone.com, and peace, love, and a general strike.
You are awesome, my friend. It is always a pleasure to see you. And you've really done, you've done an amazing job. And I really love the way, because again, there's a lot of that drama stuff that goes on, but you're very even,
All right, guys, that's the
you're
right one.
very even keel about it, and I really appreciate that, because again, you know, there is that balancing act that you have to do. There's a lot of interesting personalities in the left movement, but you really are one of those glue guys that really holds it together.
You keep it all together, Ron.
Yeah, Ron, it's on you, baby. So if you like the conversation, if you like what you heard tonight, guys, chip in a few bucks, do $27 for GoFundMe.com.
Stop.
You know, that's going to be a really important, and it's very funny. You know, Ron knows his stuff, and needless to say, we're grateful for your content. Keep it up, and we'll definitely be talking to you soon.
Thanks, Ron.
Good checking in with y'all. Be well.
Bye.
Take care, brother.
Bye.
So ironically enough, aside from that wonderful conversation, we are very fortunate to continue our earlier conversation.
I'm so surprised he was able to hang out this
Well,
long. He's
well,
probably working though. I mean, I hope he's
He is,
doing
but my-
something. I'm sure he's multitasking.
He absolutely is multitasking. But
well,
the
boys
great
are
thing-
not usually very good at multitasking, but I'm going to have a lot more
you
faith in him
know,
than I do with you.
Oh,
Just saying.
Michael Owens, welcome back.
Oh, you're so clear.
Now you're clear.
Hey, so happy to be back and looking better. I'm no longer translucent.
Look how cute you are. I think I told you last time I saw you. I love the salt and pepper thing. But yeah, and now you're not you're not glowing anymore, but that's good. That's actually a good thing. So you were telling us, and if only I had video capabilities or editing capabilities, I would almost splice it together. But you were talking about like, you know, stuff for like the Secretary of State does. And I did sort of have the epiphany. Oh yes, that's the business person.
Yeah.
That's where my business is registered.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
it's like-
that's that, you know, as I was saying earlier, I mean, there's no doubt about the kind of crux of this election, because a lot of stuff that everyone talks about now is about elections, right? I mean, so it's obvious, it's no surprise that I think that's where the crux is going to be. You know, we've got, you know, voting rights at the core that's being discussed in Washington, D.C. You know, we've got redistricting going on, and, you know, that fun gerrymandering that's happening around the country. But the Secretary of State's office is a lot more than that. First and foremost is what I tell people is that, unlike a lot of legislative roles we talk about, or we talk a lot about, you know, different policies that are out there and how you would hypothetically vote on any issue, right? Or I would support this, or I would fight for this. That fundamentally is not the Secretary of State's role. The Secretary of State is a constitutional office, one of the 5 constitutional officers of the state of Georgia. And the primary function is to run an agency, right? So it's much more like a cabinet level position than you think of, more so than a congressman or senator, right? So it takes the skills of someone who can run a multi-million-dollar organization, if you will, that will, you know, kind of, when I mentioned earlier about someone who will actually transform the Secretary of State's office, you know, and a lot of reasons people don't know about a Secretary of State's office is because it's been a backroom, bureaucratic, good old boys type environment, right? Quite frankly, nepotism has run wild. The ability to do tongue-in-cheek, you know, this type of, you know, scratch my back, I scratch yours, and all that's basically got to come to an end, right? We need to level the playing field, and from a business perspective, we've got to be innovative, right? We've got to find out how we can get more small businesses registered, number one. I was just talking to someone the other day who everyone, half of Atlanta would swear she's one of the best cooks in this state, makes phenomenal meals. But she doesn't have a business license. She doesn't own a restaurant. She doesn't even have a food truck. People go to her house to eat, right? So these are the people that we've got to support to make sure we bolster more businesses. We talked earlier about, obviously, with the climate of the pandemic with COVID-19, a lot of small business has completely gone out of business, right? So we've got to make sure we get those business owners back. We've got to support entrepreneurs. One of the big things I want to do too is, myself being a veteran, there's a couple of things as Secretary of State that we can do to help veterans. Number one is that I think, as most of us know, the military is a huge training apparatus, right? If you can think of most of any career that's out there in the civilian workforce, there's a counterpart in the military, right? I mean, whether you're an attorney, right? You're a JAG officer, whether you're a truck driver, whether you're a diesel mechanic, whether you're a pilot, right? All of these type, you know, roles and careers are out there. What I want to do is continue to work with the military. So for our veterans, when they transition out of the military, they come in a civilian workforce. I want them ready to work day one, which means if they had a military license, we've got to find a way to make sure that license transfers over to civilian workforce so they're ready to work the day they get out. Look, if you've been driving a truck for 20 years in the Army, I see very little reason why you should have to go through and, pay a fee, go through a test, or pay for school, right, to go through. Look, yeah, you drove a truck in the Army, but guess what? A lot of times you're driving on the same exact roads, right? So things like that we've got to do. When it comes to military spouses in the military, one of the downsides is, or maybe one of the good sides is, you travel a lot, right? You go from state to state. And one of the things we want to make sure we do is that if your spouse is a cosmetologist, right, we want to make sure that when you get transferred, to a new station, to a new city, to a new state, that your spouse could take that license that she had or he had and automatically go to that state and go with you and start to work day one or open their own shop. So these are the things that we can do that people don't think a lot about, all the time, as it relates to a lot of things we're normally talking about. We're talking about Congress or Senate and how we would vote on certain bills. This office is a transcendental type of office where we have an opportunity to really change the way things are done from a lot of aspects. I want to make sure more Black and brown small business owners can get state contracts, right? So when we start looking at what the actual ways that we can truly transform and make things better, that's really it.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. I mean, you're talking about obviously the difference between legislative and executive function, and you're getting an inordinate amount more control over actual logistical functions, which is something that will affect people's day-to-day lives. And I think that that's a really important thing to do. And what does the field look like in that right now? Like, who else is running? Like, what does that look like there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think Peter was saying earlier, the Secretary of State's race has never been the sexiest, the hottest race, in any election. And I don't have a story that says, when I was 10 years old, I just wanted to be the Secretary of State. I don't. I'll admit. However, being the U.S. Secretary of State's pretty appealing. I'll throw that out there.
Okay, and it's a completely different. I've been realizing since listening to you talk that a Secretary of a state is actually much more like a secretary, and handling a lot of secretarial state things, whereas the Secretary of State is not really that same thing at all. They're completely unrelated. So anyway,
probably not even overlap, but the Secretary of State in a state function, and to be clear with everyone that's watching out there, it varies from state to state. So the things that I'm talking about is specific to Georgia. But it does vary a bit from state to state. I had someone tell me that the Secretary of State's office gets all of the administrative duties from things that don't fit anywhere else, right? It's not healthcare, it's not emergency management, it's not roads. So just stick it to the Secretary of State. But there is a great opportunity in the Secretary of State's office to do some economic development, right? To be able to bolster because of the business registration and the influence that the role has as a constitutional officer. I want to make sure that we bring more promising businesses into the state of Georgia when larger companies looking to relocate, but also bolster those small businesses and entrepreneurs as well. But the landscape here in Georgia, again, it's never been a very sexy race, but I don't think in any time in modern history we've realized just how important the election for Secretary of State is, right? Just how important as the Senate hangs in a balance, right? As mentioned before, gerrymandering and election systems are all in a tilt as we have, foreign and domestic threats against our election systems. This race has become one of the most important roles in American society, and particularly in American democracy. So that is going to bring more people to the table. As it stands right now in Georgia, I would like to say I'm absolutely the clear front runner. I have the most unique skill set to come to this race, and everyone should support Michael Owens, no matter where you live in this country, to make sure I am the next Secretary of State.
Well, you've got our support. And if we,
it sounds so self-important. It's so funny.
I might say I'm a little biased, but yes, so there will be a primary in May. But we are squarely have our focus on November because, again, we have an incumbent Secretary of State who a lot of people want to, praise for not cave into Trump, as we talked about before, but he has many shortcomings. He's in a lot of ways the architect of what we know now as Jim Crow 2.0 here in the state. We also have in a Republican race, Congressman Jody Hice, who is Trump's handpicked lackey, right? Who was going to rubber stamp every single thing Trump wanted to do, including still overturning this election for the past 2020 election. So, I have to be very keen. And when we talk about this is a race we absolutely cannot afford to lose, because we know what happens. We've seen it before. It started in Georgia before, and then it moves to Texas and Louisiana and Arizona, right? We are literally ground zero. We are the linchpin. We are the, we're that mixing vat, right? Where Republicans say, let's try this out, throw it against the wall and see how it works here in Georgia. If it's successful, they move it on throughout the country. So in a lot of ways, we have to firewall this right here in Georgia and in 22 to make sure this does not become a more paramount thing across the country.
And that's why it is so important that Reverend Warnock gets reelected. He's actually, I'll say this lightly, but he's very good at his job. There's not a lot of great senators out there, but I think the circumstances within which he got elected, the type of representative he unseated, who represents the absolute worst that our country has to offer. And it wouldn't shock me if she ran again, because what the hell else is she going to do? To me, it really is going to come down to, do you have a strong, powerful ticket? Because Georgia is going through a transition period. I wasn't entirely sure if 2020 was going to be when, it finally broke through and went blue, but it did. And now a lot of the people, especially the Dixie GOP, as I like to say, because that's what it is in the Deep South, they're starting to lose control, and they are going to fight very hard to try to swing this election back red, in this follow-up election. But if the Democrats are able to hold Georgia in this follow-up election, it really will set precedent, I think, going forward. Because again, you have, she hasn't announced yet, but I'm pretty confident that Stacey Abrams is going to run again. And obviously you have Reverend Warnock, Senator Warnock. That's a pretty powerful head of the ticket, if you will. And having somebody like yourself running as Secretary of State, because as you know, the winning or losing this election, I'm sure you would agree, it's all about voter turnout. And especially in an off-year election, it's all about how many people you can get to the polls. And having a dynamic ticket is what's going to win the day, in my opinion, not just in the Atlanta metro area, but throughout the whole state. And if Georgia is fortunate enough to have you as their representative, as the Secretary of State, there's certainly things are looking on the up and up.
Okay, but can we get rid of this person?
So Jen decided we have to do our bootlicker of the week, and you're going to be included in this discussion because, of course, it's none other than Marjorie Taylor Greene. I understand that there are a lot of individuals who are trying to chase her seat down. It's not going to happen unless it's in a GOP primary. It is a plus 27 district in the southwestern part of
Michael,
the state.
is there anything we can do about this woman? I don't even know where to start with this woman. First of all, the latest thing from her was basically anti-abortion, anti-choice, making a statement that motherhood is the greatest thing a woman can do, and that it's cruel to deny them that even if they don't want it, basically, was the gist of it. And this is someone that I have said repeatedly is someone that as a little girl was never properly put in her place. This is a person that needed an ass kicking of gargantuan proportions. And I'm only hoping that she pisses off Marie Newman enough being across the hall from her that at some point that she's just friggin' had it with her. So that's my, they're across the hall from each other.
Yeah. Jen, this is, it's a northern part of our state here in Georgia. And, what I tell people, the same way that we've seen the momentum of the state shifting from a solid red state to purple to, continually marching towards blue. There are pockets within this state that are completely red. And we know that, right? Once we start to get outside of Atlanta and Atlanta metro area, Georgia really starts to change. There are pockets we have that are blue, but this is one of those areas where it is firmly red. Now, I will tell you that we do have some Democratic challengers, right? There's some people that are stepping up and willing to do everything they can to go out and motivate people to get them to vote. As you said, having Senator Warnock and hopefully Stacey Abrams on the ticket will emphatically get more and more people to turn out. So I still encourage every single voter to get out and exercise their right to vote, right? To make sure that we are organizing across the state, because while she may be doing her antics up in the 14th congressional district, we do have Democratic committees up there. We do have, strong people on the left that are working hard and are organizing. So I do not want to discourage them 1 minute, right, from doing what they need to do, because first of all, we've got to win statewide, right? And as Peter, you said before,
that's the
right?
point.
We have to win statewide.
Even if you can't unseat her, if it's
no, but can't we get another Republican? Like, find somebody for the love of all that is holy.
Because unfortunately, she is very popular.
Yeah. Let me say this: she didn't fool anyone in her district. Okay, she didn't run some super moderate race and then all of a sudden, turn code on this. I mean, it was so bad, as a matter of fact, that the Republican senators during that race was told to avoid her, not to go up there and campaign with her. So, I mean, and this is from a Republican strategist. So we knew kind of where she was. But I have to bring this back to, we have to win statewide. So those people in that congressional district, District 14 up there in North Georgia, yes, I'm talking to you guys. Keep knocking on doors, keep donating to candidates. Keep encouraging others to go out and vote, because it will matter at the end of the day. You are right, Jen. At some point in time, they're going to find a Republican candidate and oust her, because she's going to do more harm than good. But look, at this point in time, again, I mentioned, former President Trump was just down here this past weekend. He is still the leader of the Republican Party in the state of Georgia. Okay, so which completely continues to empower her and others that want to walk that line. But what we know and what we're confident about here is that Trump is bad news for Republicans winning races in this state, right? It's good in pockets in certain areas, but we know overall it's bad. So if they want to continue,
kind of like Hillary for the Dems. To kick
we continue to evolve and move forward, right? And we just had the conversation about Bernie, and a lot of my friends that are here in the state of Georgia that have worked their hinds end off, right, for Bernie. In a lot of ways, are like you said, right? They're like, where do we go now? What do we do, right? What's going to be next? You can put your anger against those that are super far right. But you can still continue to coalesce and help move this state forward. What we know is that as we will continue to move this state, we will continue to win more elections and push more and more Republicans. Look, until enough of them flat out lose, they will continue to be emboldened. So I don't know any other way to say it besides we got to continue to go out and kick their rear end until Republicans realize that Trump and his acolytes are not a winning strategy.
Yeah. And I would definitely say Georgia is definitely one of the most important states, along with Pennsylvania, in the midterms next year. And I really do think that if the Dems are not only able to hold, but able to take the governorship, that not only is going to be a complete repudiation on the MAGA movement, if you will, but I actually do think that is what will ultimately draw the ire to somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene, because they will see that even if she's popular in her district, overall, you're hurting the party.
She's a net negative.
Right.
Yeah.
She's a net negative.
And she's a really lousy person. I hate to say it.
But that thing where she got heckled with Gates. My thing is this, and this is a very sort of Kyle Kalinske approach to this stuff. I personally think that people like that should never go a day in their life anywhere in public without being heckled. I think that there's certain people, I think this applies to people when, like Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema.
But you're seeing it right now with George W. Bush.
And let me tell you, they should be incarcerated for war crimes. But there are people that should never be allowed to see the light of day without being heckled. And if that's the worst thing, because these are people that should be probably incarcerated. So
you know what's going to happen, Jen? when we have scenarios where even Republicans realize that having people like that in office is bad for business in this state. That's something we haven't touched on, right? But that is very important. And again, kind of going back to Secretary of State, I have to be very cognizant of these things. And people like that in office is bad for the state of Georgia. And it hurts economically. It does hurt small businesses. It hurts opportunities that we have. And so, again, Peter, whether she's popular or not, right? The point starts to get that she becomes bad for everybody, right? Yeah. And when we start to hurt as a state, when the economy starts to hurt more, when it starts to hurt everyone's pockets, those that are influentially well off, and it hurts their pockets as well, then eyebrows start to go up, and they go, as long as she's up there in Northwest Corner bantering, way past dog whistling, and doing the antics, it's okay. But when it starts to backfire, and when it starts to hit people in their pockets, that's when they're going to see. So, I have to really just implore people, right? Continue to do what we're doing. It's vitally important with Reverend Warnock, with Senator Warnock up for re-election. That is, think about it, right? All eyes were on Georgia. Why? Because we were able to deliver the Senate, right? It's a razor thin margin right now.
Maybe you should come here. Maybe you need to come here.
I think
we're never having that.
Yeah, the Sunshine State is
we're so screwed.
The Sunshine State is a peninsula for a reason. People really like.
They got to cut us off.
You
just cut. Stop the bleeding.
The Bugs Bunny joke about slicing Florida off the side.
I have to say, we're your neighbors right to the north, right? And so we, for a long time, have been in the exact same boat. South Georgia in a lot of ways is North Florida. Those lines are completely blurred along there.
They call it Floribama.
Northern Floribama.
We cannot underestimate the voters' ability to see through the BS at the end of the day, right? If we get out and we do our jobs, if we campaign, if we organize, if we rally people, and we know there's not anybody probably better in the country to do that than Stacey Abrams. So if she is on the ballot, we have a fantastic opportunity to rally people from the mountains down to the coast. We have Reverend Warnock. We'll have myself on the ballot, and we will be able to, truly energize. I never hide the fact that I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. We have 780,000 veterans in this state, right? They want to have someone that they can speak their voice to that's going to represent them. So building a dynamic slate is going to be really important, but being able to get people out, you're right. Turnout is going to be so important. We know we have the numbers to win, right? We know we have the numbers to win. All this talk about Jim Crow 2.0 and the gerrymandering that's going on, and even the Senate Bill 202, which passed here in Georgia, which we know definitely targets people specifically, right? We can still win. There's things that we can still do. And I'll tell people, razor thin margins and audits and all that, make the win insurmountable. Make it very clear. Win by enough votes that, have Trump calling back down here again, asking for a few more votes, but do that. I'm going to need support. I'm going to need a lot of help,
guys.
Most
people don't think we got to support somebody for Secretary of State, and you will be the only Secretary of State candidate that comes on our show from any state, because I don't think that. I'm not.
Think about it. I had someone from the Midwest say, reached out to me and says, Michael, I am supporting you wholeheartedly for Secretary of State. We absolutely have to have you to win this. The fact that you are a cybersecurity expert, you get this. You're not only voting rights, but you're also talking about how to transform and kind of reimagine the way that the office is. He goes, and look, I know exactly 2 Secretary of States in the entire country. Mine, because I live in the state, and the Secretary of State in Georgia, because that's just how important that state is to what's going on. So when that happened, when that was kind of a seminal moment to me, to where I'm like, yeah, this is not only important about the rah-rah, but this is important to people all over the country because they understand just how important this race is. So it's a bit down ballot. I get it. It's not, a governor's race, but it could not be more important to the fabric of this country and to the democracy, that we have to go out and make sure, support me, Michael Owens, for Secretary of State. Jen, I thank you for bringing me on the program. My website's on there. It's owensforgeorgia.com. Please follow me on Twitter. We're gonna. That's our next mission is to build up our Twitter following so we can make sure we continue to get the message out. I will commit to this, working absolutely as hard as I can every single day until May 24th to make sure that people know who I am, that understand why I am uniquely the most qualified person for this race. And I'm someone who's going to do everything I can to support, Stacey Abrams if she's on the ballot, and Reverend Warnock, and ultimately at the end of the day, the people, right? The people of the state, and ultimately people around the country.
We will definitely have you back on.
We may have an opportunity to go to Georgia.
I would consider going to Georgia.
Yeah.
I mean, you could twist my arm. It's on my way to where I go every summer. So
awesome. Well, I'd be more than happy to have you guys come through. If you remember the last time I was on your show, I was wearing a Vote Warnock shirt, and I absolutely did say that we would win not two at both of those elections. We can go back and pull that tape, I believe. Yes. And we were able to do it, right? So we are confident in our abilities, what we're able to do in the state. We know we've got a lot of opposition against us. We know that there is some devious, systematic discrimination that's going on here. I still believe we can overcome that, and we can do the things necessary to go out and win these elections in 2022.
That's awesome.
Well, you have our support 100%. It's always a pleasure to see you. Michael Owens, the next Secretary of State for in the state of Georgia, the Peach State. And Georgia is on our mind, and it will be for the next about 8-9 months. Yeah. So let's make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So happy to be on. Hope to see you soon.
Pleasure as always. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye, Mike.
And I say it always, he's lovely.
Yes, he is. And of course, this is the thing, now that I think about it, I think we really have to think about why there isn't an organization that focuses on electing non-corporate representatives who are not running for, I hate saying it this way, but the sexy positions.
Well, right. Well, that's one of the problems that Democrats tend to have is they don't focus on those seats. They don't focus
on... The GOP certainly does.
Oh, yes, they do.
They value the precinct committee captains as much as the highest elected officials.
And we need to get to that point.
Yes,
basically.
Because that's what's ultimately going to change. And the great thing about it, even though there was a lot of people who don't like the idea of, fighting within the Democratic Party, let me tell you this. These types of seats, Secretary of State, Commissioner of Agriculture, there's some positions that the establishment does, tend to get, their claws in, but there's a lot of these positions that are immensely important to the state infrastructure, to state legislation, and they kind of just get, glossed over.
Right. Well, and I think that's by design.
Of course.
That's by design.
That could be an opening for the non-corporate movement and wouldn't have to invest anywhere near the amount of money
as you do for running for
Senate or
or governor or whatever. Yeah.
I always say, Jen was an exception to the rule in many ways for the race against Wasserman Schultz. Number one, because she's a lightning rod, could raise money off it. We did pretty well, all things considered, but it's nowhere near enough if you're actually going to be competitive enough to win.
You need more money.
And then you think about a lot of the other people who choose to run, as you like to say, because they want that seat and are not thinking strategically about whether or not that's the right investment.
Here's the thing. Does that district want them?
Yeah. Stacey Abrams, because of what she has accomplished over
she would have won if they didn't cheat.
That is correct.
She would have won.
And so instead of just waiting to run in the next election, her attitude's like, no, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to make sure that when I run again, and I'm going to, that I don't get screwed. That if we lose because it was fair and square.
Right. I do believe she would have won. They purged their voter rolls to such an extent that and obviously it was on purpose, but
that the current incarnation of the GOP is dying because they cannot survive unless they cheat. They have no other way because they're not willing to reform themselves. They're not willing to move away from the corporate special interest money. So what do? Well, you suppress the vote.
Yeah. Well, they do it all different ways. Yeah. That's the thing. It's multi-layered at the same time. It's everything from changing polling locations, purging voters.
But in Georgia, it's so blatant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so blatant. And this is their response to basically having the state, have its own Austin, its own LA, its own New York, if you will. Atlanta, I believe, is now the most there's more traffic going through Atlanta.
Okay,
than any
that
other-
does not surprise me. I've driven there.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. And yeah,
lot of
again,
people.
I'm somebody who needs to move to the woods. Like Jason calls me, my husband calls me the Unabomber. I would go be happy in a very small house in the woods.
Unfortunately, all the people
I
who
would-
tend to
and
live
I
in
would
those
just
small
bring-
houses, they all vote red. So you
okay,
get that
I
out
will.
of an
I
issue
will
with them.
build like a little blue oasis around. Actually, I'm purple around my little self.
Well, there you go. Good plug
But
for the purple.
yeah,
So
we have cool things coming up, guys.
yes, we do. And so on Monday, we are supposed to have our first congressional.
And again, I'm not naming said.
we're not going to
person.
name them, but hopefully, knock on wood, this will be our first.
Our
And
very
this will-
first
because
congressional representative.
once you get your, and ironically, if I'm checking the dates correctly, it will be our 1-year anniversary of starting this podcast.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Well,
So-
and are we? But we're not going to do that live, or we are. I don't know.
I don't think so because of the time. It's just a little too early. Although, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. I think we should maybe.
we could talk about it.
I think we could
it's
talk about.
supposed to be.
Possibly-
It's supposed to be at 4:00 in the afternoon.
It's right, and
Now,
we would.
I don't know.
I'm thinking what we do is we record it and then we show it Monday.
Yeah,
Monday night.
yeah,
for the
because
live.
Monday night doesn't seem to be the issue, but because the viewership has been so low on the show tonight, we have been discussing and again, it's not part of it is suppression. There's no question about it. But we went up against 2 big shows this
And those are
evening.
just the 2 we know.
Yes, there could be more.
Oh, I'm
but
sure
2 of the
lot
big
more.
ones. And I noticed a comment from our buddy Cheese Sandwich.
Oh, cheese sandwich.
Cheese Sandwich had mentioned, or was it? I'm pretty sure it was. Don't know if it's a guy or a girl, so you can't say. But Cheese Sandwich did say that I'm watching 5 podcasts, live streams right now, and I'm thinking 5.
Right. We've got
that's
too many on at the
Thursday.
same time.
We even said
Look, and
Thursday-
there's only 5 people are
Yeah,
watching now.
and
We're
well,
so
it
sad.
doesn't include Twitter, but nevertheless,
We're sad. But we're going to switch our format.
it looks like we're going to be switching our format to Sundays and Wednesdays, and it seems that is. We have been suggested. I'm just going to say it. We were suggested by our good
What?
friend.
No, you should. I mean, it doesn't really matter.
No.
It was just sort of like somebody who is a content creator.
Yes, and suggested that this was probably the best way to go. And so, Mr. Cheese Sandwich, forgive us.
Okay.
Forgive us. But
Thank
we appreciate
you.
your humor. It is dry and it's funny. So
well, he announced his pronouns.
that is true. Wow, there you go. So what I think is very important is to assess what our situation is. Thursday night podcast
Is too
is
we're too
essentially
busy.
it's essentially a Friday night type of situation.
We're. I mean, there's just everybody and their mother is on Thursday nights.
So we're going up against Jen's good friend Katie Halper, who just had Michael Moore on
so-
tonight. That's a big deal. And Thursday night apparently is the night when Nina Turner does her show with Cenk Uygur at 8 p.m. So
that's
needless to say,
it's not a good night for us.
Really in the wrong. We're on the wrong day.
So we do have guests booked up to a certain amount of time, but we're gonna start to incorporate.
It looks like that's
Sundays
gonna
and
be
Wednesdays.
about
and see.
2 to 3 weeks. It's basically, but we're going to test it and we're going to see what ultimately comes of it. But we do think that that's the way we should
Next
go.
Thursday we have.
Next Thursday.
I hope you're done with the book.
Not done with it yet, but I'm reading it.
You better get done with it. So next Thursday we are having Michael Lennox and Rebecca Duff, who wrote the. You don't have it with you, but it's called The Decarbonization Myth.
Yeah,
is the name of the book, and we're going to be talking with them. I mean,
we
kind of
guest.
alternate who reads. Like we don't always. We can't.
Well, we can't. We got a lot of books. So
got a lot of books.
we got to have Jen reads
and
all of
I'm-
Tom Hartman's books. or
I
has
do well,
listened to
and
it, or
I'm also
speaks to
now
it.
an Audible person.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's
That's
like
fun.
I
don't
like
mind.
to be read too.
But what we will say is, we have a lot of really amazing guests coming up. We're not going to announce them yet because things can always happen. But a lot of big names
Yes.
scheduled to come on. We
But you
also
did
have-
drop our Veterans Day.
Well, that's big because we want.
So
people
if you
to
weren't on
know-
in the beginning, we are very fortunate, and we will be joined by Oliver Stone for Veterans Day. We're
Yes.
gonna obviously we'll have a few more. I'm thinking I definitely want Danny Scherzen to come back.
Danny is going to be on that as well.
Um,
He's already confirmed.
Okay.
So that's big.
I kind of crush on him.
Well, there
I'm
you
just
go.
saying.
Well, if you want
I'm
a
just
country boy in the
saying
Midwest, there you
I'm
go.
just saying I kind of crush on him.
I think
He's
he
just-
crushes on you. That's why
I
he always
don't-
wants to come on the show.
I don't know about
I'm
that,
just
but
saying.
I crush on him.
But
he's so cute.
we're also going to have who I've always said is the leader of the non-corporate progressive movement, and that is our good friend Nina Turner. She will be back. We will also have
Yes.
our friend, despite the fact that a lot of people have strong opinions about him, but we think he's swell. And that, of course, is Andrew Yang.
And you know what? I'm not, it's not an endorsement. It's just, he's somebody who
No.
was really nice to me, was very good to me. I have found very pleasant, have had very enjoyable conversations.
And when you have things that are in common, then you focus on the things that
And
you agree on.
regardless of what positions or what campaigns or what he was running for, I find him in general to be a net positive. And so that is really the gist.
Elvira,
I'm not making a political
Elvira,
stand.
we have tried to get Reverend Barber on the show. Unfortunately, he's turned us down a couple of times. We'll keep trying. Hopefully, one of these days we'll be
We're
able
so
to
small
break through.
potatoes. That's part of
Yeah.
it. So if anybody has connections, but we do have some cool things coming up for sure.
Yep. So Monday could be a very big day in terms of our first official federally elected representative.
I'm very
on the
excited.
show. Next Thursday, obviously.
And
is-
maybe we'll have something to be talking about. Maybe we'll get the bill passed.
Yeah, that'll be big.
My hint is this, is that the person coming on our show is one of the people, well, obviously, would we be having somebody come on our show that isn't one of the people that's fighting and taking a stand for the infrastructure?
I think we really need to focus on the statewide initiatives, particularly when it comes to the environment. Yes, we are absolutely going to do everything in our power to get Dr. Cornell West on our podcast. Will it happen?
Okay, I don't know that I can handle that.
Yeah, but that may be the ultimate if we could get him, and that's somebody we would really, really, really like to have on. Don't care.
I don't care, but I can only hope it's true.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. But hopefully it does happen. What else can we say? We really would like to have him on. There's a lot of guests we would like to have on.
Yes, Keith, it's not about whether or not he's an ally or not an ally. He is just somebody that I like, I think is a net positive, and is somebody that was very supportive of me. It's that simple. There's no, I have no agenda. I'm not promoting anything.
I will repeat this until I'm blue in the face. Nobody helped Jen's campaign in 2020 more than the Yang Gang. Nobody.
And that's important,
group.
people. So when
they were phone banking and text banking. They worked so hard.
He really went out of his way for us. And so when you say he's no ally, maybe not on a lot of the policy issues that you support, that we support, I understand that.
Sure.
But when it came to trying to get me into office, which would be in the best interest of those policies, he was the most supportive person that we had.
1,000%.
So that's why
that doesn't take anything away from others, whether it was Marianne Williamson, Nina
not.
Turner. They're
the Yang Gang.
It's not, and it isn't really necessarily about Andrew himself. It's about his supporters. They were amazing.
Yeah, and of course, so even though you might not see him as an ally to all of the progressive issues, I get that, or even any of them that you support. I understand that. He was an ally to us.
Yeah.
And that's important. And so and that's something I like about him, is that he's actually willing to support people that he just thinks that they're decent people in it for the right reasons, even if he doesn't agree with them on all their policies.
100%.
And that is something that is important to me.
So we've definitely cast a wide net. And look, there's a lot of people that Ron Placone associates with that we just won't associate with.
Nope.
But Ron's a great guy. And just because he associates with people we disagree with doesn't mean that, now we can't hang out with Ron. Now we can't talk to him. No, that's not how this works. So building these relationships are absolutely essential. They really are. And so I'm looking forward to him being on.
Okay, we'd love to have the real Bernie come on. I'd love to. I don't know. I don't know that can happen.
Someday. I've got Bernie's legislative aide follows you on social media. So maybe someday. And you got Warren Gunnels who follows you on social media.
Yeah,
he really likes Jen.
We have a few people that are links. I mean, obviously I have a connection. I can, to
Let's
Nina.
put it this way. If Jen were to run against Wasserman Schultz again in 24, I have no doubt that
we'd love to get Stephanie
Kelton we've been working on. That reminds me, we got to get Steve back on the show.
Yeah.
Steve Grumbine.
We'll have an MMT on him too.
Yeah, Stevie's good people.
Him.
We'll have a big conversation coming up with that. Like we said, we'll do more panels going forward. We love the show. We wish we had more viewers, but we recognize that we probably have to change.
And when we started this, the truth is this was never started to be some live stream thing. This wasn't. We started this as a podcast, specifically as a podcast, I didn't necessarily know we would be doing video. We started this interviewing like interesting guests, doing long form interviews, getting out people who are experts on issues that we think are important, talk about topics such as everything from climate crisis to reparations and I mean, just all the different things.
Sarah Nelson from the CWA. We would love to get her on. We've tried. She's got a very busy schedule. I'm sure we'll work it out at some
And there
point.
are certain people that will not affiliate with us because I ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yes, that's true too.
That's just, even though I'm not a candidate now and we're just trying to provide information, we have actually been turned down a couple of times by potential guests based on the fact that I ran against Debbie. Like, this is junior high school to these people.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the old way of doing things,
Yeah.
and eventually it won't be it will no longer be the way of doing things. So with that said, it's been a very interesting evening.
There's a baked potato waiting for me.
So let's go get some food. We'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend, guys.
Bye, all.